Today is Monday, September 13th, 2021 at 6 p.m. This is the Hanson Board of Selectmen meeting being recorded and televised by Whitman Hanson Cable Access. Please join with me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Great. Thank you very much. Before we begin tonight's meeting, Mr. Mitchell will not be joining us tonight, and I might have to step out for a couple of phone calls this evening. In the case of that, Mr. Weeks will step in as chair, seeing how he's third in succession. With that being said, Mr. Weeks, do you mind taking the public announcements this week?
My pleasure. Dollars for Scholars plans Electronic Recycling Day. Whitman and Hanson Dollars for Scholars begins their fundraising season with a fall electronic recycling day at the former McQuon School in Hanson on Saturday, September 11th from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. Residents and non-residents can dispose of their unwanted electrical items, which they may not be able to do away with by conventional trash methods. A fee will be assessed, which will support DFS's Scholarship Awards program. Due to COVID-19 and social distancing practices, please allow extra time for drop-off. Those unable to attend may call ahead for an alternate day and time. For more information, please contact Mike at 781-252-9683 or visit www.whitmanandhanson.dollarsforscholars.org.
Excuse me. So I think this item and the next item
looks like the next
happened
one.
last weekend, right?
Yep.
Okay, well, yeah, that's what happened.
I think I'm
last week.
gonna skip past the next one because that's also September 12th.
But
So,
actually, if I can interject, so the, oh yeah, never mind.
yeah.
No.
This is why I can never be a newscaster, because I'll just read whatever's on the prompter. I'm going to skip right down to the bottom then and just talk about upcoming meetings, unless I'm missing something.
Well, Council on
Volunteers are
Aging.
needed.
Yeah.
Here we go. Council on Aging Step by Step Fall Prevention Awareness Week begins on September 22nd, 2021. Please reach out to our Council on Aging at 781-293-2683 for more information. Please license your dog by September 30th to avoid a $25 late fee. Licenses are available in the town clerk's office. The fee is $10 for puppies and spayed and neutered dogs. Licenses are $15 for intact male and female dogs. For questions, please call the town clerk's office at 781-293-2772. Volunteers are also needed on the following committees: Bylaw Review Committee, Conservation Commission, Cultural Council, Disabilities, Facebook Upkeep Committee, Highway Building Committee, Memorial Day Patriotic Observance, Memorial Field Trustees, Nathaniel Thomas Mill Committee, and the Zoning Bylaw Review Committee. We have upcoming meetings: Board of Selectmen, September 28th, 2021 at 6 p.m., and special town meeting October 4th, 2021, and October 5th, 2021, if necessary, at High School Gymnasium. And back to Matt with the weather.
Great, thank you, Mr. Weeks. The first item on our agenda is to recognize the 20th anniversary of 9/11 and the lost lives with a moment of silence. Thank you. With that, we will be going into a joint meeting with the Economic Development Committee with their second presentation. And with that being said, Ms. Kemet, do you mind taking it away?
Not at all. I just want to recognize the two members of the Economic Development Committee that are with us tonight. A couple other folks have got conflicts. We've got Ken Sweezy and Jim Garanitis, who have been laboring oars on the committee. In particular, I'd like to call out Mr. Garanitis, who has been working quite often and tirelessly with Phil Chafing, who is with Stantec. What you're about to see tonight from Mr. Chafing is the result of many meetings with Jim, at times the town planner, Deb Petty, who I would like to recognize as helping us get this grant, Lisa Green, John Stanbrook, myself, and what we've got is Phil presenting a blueprint for steps that the town can take in order to revitalize Main Street, and in general, help us with our economic development. So with that, Phil, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Great, well, thank you very much, and thank you especially for the invitation to join you today. I know you have a busy agenda and there's a lot going on in the town, but I really appreciate the time and look forward to talking with you over the next, try to keep it to 30 to maybe 40 minutes, talking about the local rapid recovery plan for Hanson. And so with that, I'm gonna hold a presentation that will just kind of talk through the process that we've been doing over the past few months, and in particular, the draft project recommendations that we have. So that's what we'll be covering. I wanted to begin just with a brief overview of the program. This was part of our first presentation in early June to this joint meeting as well. But just as a reminder, this, what we're talking about tonight, is the Rapid Recovery Plan Program, which is a planning grant that was offered by the Massachusetts Department of Housing and Community Development, DHCD. These planning grants were offered on a competitive basis across the Commonwealth. They awarded 120 of these to towns and communities of all sizes across Massachusetts, with the goal of developing an actionable project-based recovery plan to help downtowns and commercial areas recover from the impacts of COVID-19. So there's a real focus on small business assistance in these plans, but that extends beyond just what you might think of in sort of traditional technical assistance or those types of programs, to thinking about how these commercial areas and downtown areas can support the customer experience, invite people to come to downtown, to these commercial areas, to patronize these businesses. And so there's a very strong physical component to these plan recommendations as well. So I mentioned, Hanson's one of 120 communities across Massachusetts. DHCD has been collecting a lot of great information on what are some of the shared issues and concerns facing these towns and communities across the Commonwealth. And so, that information is being shared within DHCD, within other state-level departments to kind of understand what's happening on the ground and try to align funding sources with some of these shared and common needs. The area that we're focusing on is a specific commercial area, the South Hanson Village, which is what we're calling the area around the MBTA commuter rail station on Main Street. So this is stretching roughly from Elm Street to High Street approximately, and really focusing on the commercial and industrial areas and businesses in this part of the town. So that's where we're focusing our recommendations. One of the goals of this program is that if these plan recommendations are successful within the study area, there are several that could be extended out beyond this particular geography to the entire town to benefit all of the businesses here. And so that's a really important part of this, I think, is this is a chance to test some new ideas, some new projects here within a more focused geography, but then hopefully to expand those over time. And so our process, we got started in the spring with a business survey, a site visit, kind of an analysis of what's working well and what are areas for improvement in that station area. We first came together in early June to share the results of that. Over the summer, we've been developing the project recommendations, which we'll talk about in just a moment. And on several of those, having the opportunity to work with specific subject matter experts, SMEs, which are part of this planning grant program that DHCD is offering. And so for 3 projects that we felt were important to the study area, they assigned us a subject matter expert, design consultant or another expert to help us think in a little bit more detail about that particular project recommendation. And these are kind of short, targeted interventions. Each consultation was 3 to 5 hours of time from the subject matter expert, but a great opportunity to learn what other towns and communities are doing, to get best practices and to get feedback on these particular project recommendations. And so that's been a really helpful part of this program. And then we're currently in the final phase, kind of refining our draft project recommendations and the draft plan, moving towards the final plan submittal in early October to the Department of Housing and Community Development. So are there any initial questions just on this program or the process that we've had so far?
Nope, I don't believe there is.
All right, then we will move ahead into our project recommendations. So we wanted to share these with you tonight as a chance to really start to build the momentum for some of the projects in here. And as Laura mentioned, this rapid recovery plan really is meant as a framework for the South Hanson Village. And so over time, priorities will change. Projects may evolve into something a little different than what we're thinking of them today. But it's meant to provide a kind of a coordinated, cohesive approach to the South Hanson Village area, supporting the businesses that are there today, thinking about ways to encourage new businesses to locate here in the future, and just as ways to help improve this area so that it really is a welcoming gateway for the town, a place that residents come to on a regular basis and can enjoy what's there. And so under the program guidance, our recommendations fall into one of these 6 categories that you see here. Several of which I mentioned are much more focused on physical improvements, particularly the public realm and private realm improvements. Others which are sort of your more traditional small business assistance that would fall under revenue and sales and tenant mix. And then others that include administrative capacity, the town's capacity to undertake some of these projects and the steps to make those happen. So these are all things that we looked at. They're all building on that phase 1 needs assessment that we did, pointing out what I think all of you already know, living here and experiencing this on a regular basis. But things like the need for improvements to the buildings in the South Hanson Village area, facade improvements, storefront improvements, some maintenance and repair, and some just general kind of improvement to help improve the character and the feel of this district. Other things like signage and wayfinding, being able to direct people who may be coming to the station or driving through the area, some of the other great assets and resources that the town has to offer, and a number of other things. So each of these projects is in some way trying to address one or more of those needs that we identified early on. So our first group of projects that I'll cover here fall under public realm and private realm improvements. And these are in no particular order right now. First project here is improving the pedestrian environment near the station. The commuter rail is a great asset for the town. It's a place for commuters to be able to get off the road, get on the train to go to Boston or to other locations. And one of the ways to help to take better advantage of that is to improve access to the station. One way is improvements to sidewalks or bicycle routes to and from the area, connecting some of the nearby residential areas, and as you'll see in the next project, even beyond that to other parts of the town. So this requires working within some of the physical constraints of Main Street here, and thinking about opportunities to improve the sidewalk, potentially add pedestrian scale lighting to make walking in the morning and the evenings more inviting, potentially street trees if there's space to allow for that, and looking at the configuration of the road as well, how that all kind of works together to create a more visually appealing environment here and a place that you feel comfortable walking or biking along as well. And then expanding that same mentality and connecting the station area to other parts of the town. So thinking about how to get between Town Hall and the Liberty Street area, or the open space that's planned for the Plymouth County Hospital site off of High Street. How do you connect that and other community destinations to the station area, improving pedestrian amenities, making it safer to walk, all as a way to help get people to the area, which helps support the businesses that are there. More potential customers passing by means more potential opportunity to invite people in and be able to promote your business. Part of this is, also then what happens kind of under the ground, the infrastructure. This was something that came up after our first meeting in June, is the need to really take a good look at the infrastructure that's there today, particularly stormwater and wastewater management, and in particular, the relationship with some of the natural resources and wetlands and the Burge Pond that's nearby. Because it does place some natural limitations on the type of growth that can come here. So really, evaluating what's there today, what is its condition, what is the capacity to accommodate what's there today, and potential growth in the future. So taking a look at that from sort of an infrastructure and utility perspective. Another project that came out of that first meeting was thinking about the proximity of the station area to great natural resources like the trails at Burge Pond, and how you get from point A to point B. And today, there's not much signage. There's no real way to walk or bike there. Basically, it requires a car. And so this project recommendation is to kind of conduct a feasibility assessment of ways to improve physical connections between Main Street and the station area and some of the town's resources like Burge Pond, as a way to potentially build a net nature-based or almost tourism component, small scale, but again, ways to invite people to the station area, see the businesses that are here, enjoy all that the town has to offer. Then our two private realm project recommendations. The first one is a really important one, I think, which is to find ways for the town to help, to work with the private property and building owners to improve building facades and business storefronts in the study area. And this was one of the projects that we identified to request a subject matter expert consultation, and had a great conversation with them to understand, what are other towns and commercials areas doing? What are some of the lessons that we could bring to Hanson? One of those was that an early step in doing this would be to develop a set of design guidelines that kind of describes what residents and business owners want to see in a business district. And this ties to another project, which I'll touch on at the end of the list here, but sort of a community visioning effort to talk together about South Hanson Village and its role within the town, and what is the future character of this? Is this a walkable Main Street? Is this a commercial area that is well kept up and attractive and inviting to existing and new businesses, but maybe isn't the traditional walkable Main Street necessarily? And there's a couple different ways that this could go, but physical improvements to the buildings there is a big part of that. And so we had a good conversation and got some good resources from our subject matter expert on this particular project. And then the last one in this set is really more kind of a way of supporting more housing in and near the study area. We know that there's some housing going on just beyond the study area boundaries that should be opening up soon. And from a business perspective, having more residents that are living nearby, especially for retail and sort of service-oriented businesses, is helpful for that business. It's potential customers who are close enough to walk to the restaurant or to the service business, the laundry or dry cleaners or whatever. And so having more housing nearby can help support businesses like that. So this is really more of a policy around kind of looking at the zoning and the regulations both within the study area and nearby to see if there are opportunities to encourage more housing nearby. So that's our first set of public and private realm projects. Any initial questions or comments on these? All of these project recommendations, and I can talk a little bit more about how it'll fold into the final deliverable. But will be part of a report, and each of these projects will have sort of a profile that describes them in more detail, talks about potential funding sources, the timeline for implementation, who's the lead, who are potential partners for the project. So any comments or information that would support that would certainly be helpful as well. So I'll pause for just a moment to see if there are any questions on this first group of projects.
Well, Phil, I just want to clarify that we're not, encourage more housing might be I don't know, a little bit awkward wording there. I would say that we recognize that 40B has come to Hanson, and that we can try to effectuate the most positive outcome for the town, but stopping it is next to impossible and isn't necessarily something that we, as a board, have said we want to do at any rate. But one of the things that we want to explore is whether there is a way for us to look at 40R, which is, as you said, sort of saying, okay, if you're going to build this type of housing, then we think it needs to be near mass transit. We think it needs to be, you know, we've got a specific area we'd like to have it in, versus having it in the middle of just regular bedroom communities where it really is not a good fit. But there's more to talk about on this, and it's not unilaterally like our place to be saying that we're like going out and knocking on people's doors saying, please come to Hanson and develop this type of housing. We're talking about, is there a way for us to develop a zone and work with it so that we can effectuate the outcome more than we have been able to with the existing 40B.
And that's a great point, right? It's more about having the regulations and policies in place that invite and allow the type of housing that the community wants and needs. As homeowners age, as college graduates and high school graduates are out in the workforce looking for their first place, and it needs to be affordable. Whatever the particular housing needs in Hanson may be. But making sure that the regulations allow for that. And that's not always the case today. And so, right, this is, again, meant to be kind of a high-level description, and as we would refine that for the plan recommendation, it is considering ways to influence what types of housing, and where they get built in the community.
All right, and there's no other comments at this time, Phil. And I just wanted to do a time check. We have about 15 minutes or so left in the segment.
Great, that should work. So the rest of the projects fall under these three categories here. The first one, which is all about promoting the local businesses that are in the South Hanson Village area today, within the community and even the region, to help increase their sales and encourage a buy local mindset. This is another one where we had a good conversation with our subject matter expert. There's a number of different strategies and things that some of which the Hanson Business Network has already begun or undertaken, but thinking about things like district branding, business district brochure that can be either print or online, a focused social media campaign, or even just ways to get businesses to talk to each other, business-to-business networking opportunities where one business may realize that their waste products that they don't need anymore are actually the inputs for another business in the study area or in the community. Those types of conversations, or bulk purchasing to help reduce costs for businesses. Those types of strategies are all different ways to help promote local businesses, to help build them back after COVID-19 and the impacts of the pandemic, and just generally to encourage that buy local mindset, to recognize all of the diverse business types that are in Hanson broadly, but specifically in the station area, to encourage people to patronize those. And a related project then is to provide a third-party technical support, technical assistance for business owners to really take a good look at their online sales and marketing efforts, and identify areas for improvement, whether it's their online sales platform, the way they market online, what their website looks like and its functionality. A lot of towns and cities provide this by working with a third-party consultant or design firm or business advisor, who then can work with small business owners, take a look at what they're doing, and offer feedback and advice and improvements they could make. So some ideas for this could also be as simple as a guide to starting a business in Hanson, a kind of a flow chart of approvals and applications and licenses and things. Could be training on improving websites or online sales and marketing. So there's a lot of, again, different ways that this could go, and it's important to make sure that what's being offered is tailored to the needs of the businesses. But again, looking for ways for the town to help support business owners be as successful as they can be. Then another project here is related to those physical connections to places like Burridge Pond, but coming out of our first public meeting, the idea of recognizing the history and the resources that are in or very near to the study area. So recognizing the history of ocean spray here, recognizing Burridge Pond and the wildlife resources that are nearby, the Bay Circuit Trail, which runs not too far from the study area. All of these, putting signage and wayfinding out there on the streets and the sidewalks so that as people are passing through, they recognize all this here and they think about, oh, maybe this is a place I could stop and grab breakfast or lunch before heading to one of these places. So using that as a way to support businesses. And then from an administrative standpoint, taking a look at the zoning in the study area to find ways to really kind of simplify the zoning, to make it more user-friendly, to clarify what the requirements of zoning are. That was some of the initial feedback from the subject matter expert that we talked to about this. And even going so far as to take a look at a couple of potential sites in the study area and see what happens when you apply zoning. Can you get the types of uses and the type of development that you think you want to encourage here? That's a really good test, a way to identify parts of the zoning that need to be improved over time. So this is all about, again, facilitating the business environment here. And in a way, this particular project, which kind of falls in the other category, almost comes in front of all of the others. And that's to really make sure that there's a shared understanding and a shared vision of South Hanson Village and where the community wants it to be in the future. What type of place do you want this to be? And so hosting conversations about this, talking together, what does it look like, what does it feel like, what are the type of businesses that are here, and then calibrating the public investment to implement that shared vision. And that's a really important foundational step to help build on some of these other project recommendations. And that, where we started from at the beginning, talking about this rapid recovery plan as a framework, is really important. As this vision becomes more clearly defined, then the framework provides a guide in terms of potential pedestrian improvements, assistance to small businesses, ways to connect the study area to natural resources and the history of the area. So that's a really important, I think, part of this. So these are the complete list of recommended projects. I'll come back to this in just a moment for any questions and comments on that, because I do want to make sure we cover what's next. As I mentioned in the beginning, the final plan for the Rapid Recovery Plan program for South Hanson Village will be submitted in early October. And what that is, as I mentioned, is a description of each of these projects in more detail, with the goal that as funding opportunities become available, the town or other project leads are able to look at that project description, that project profile, and pull a lot of the information they need for the application to really make that an easier process. And then be able to implement those projects as funding becomes available. That could be American Rescue Plan Act funds, ARPA. It could be Massachusetts Community One-Stop funds from different programs that are currently available. It could be foundation programs for certain projects. So these potential funding sources will be identified in the RRP plan. An important part of this too is just the town's capacity to implement this. This list of projects is not all meant to be implemented at once. And so prioritization is important, matching projects to available funding is important. But those are all kind of the next steps from here. And then before I open it up for questions or comments, I do just want to point out as well that through this program, DHCD has published a lot of resources on their website. This includes 2 recent webinars on funding sources on ARPA and other Commonwealth programs, library really of webinar recordings from the subject matter experts talking about public-run projects, private-run projects, administrative, how to change your zoning, how to make it more user-friendly, all of that, as well as several compilations of best practices and case studies from communities around Massachusetts and then even beyond. And so there's a lot of information here for the select board, for town staff to take a look at. I would encourage you to do it. It's a great resource that DHCD is offering through this program. So I do want to make sure you're aware of that. And so with the couple minutes we have left, I just wanted to see if there were any other questions on this list of projects, and particularly as you look at this, if there are any that you would consider as a strong priority for the town to take a look at in the South Hanson Village area. Any feedback or thoughts like that would be great.
All right, we don't have any questions or comments on this end, Phil, for right now. But maybe conducting a town-wide visioning process would probably be the best. We had some really good outcomes with the Plymouth County Hospital property, where that was quite the turnout for a committee. So I would recommend maybe doing something like that before moving forward, or however you see fit. And then, and then we have one comment, sorry.
Yeah, I think it's important on this one that we don't do it in a vacuum. I think what this town needs is a visioning on who are we, what do we want to portray to the outside world, and then start to plug things in. Because Phil talked earlier about starting to come up with recommendations on what do we want buildings to look like that are being built and things like that. That all falls into that. But I think really it should be looked at first at what's the whole town, what do we want people to think about us? And then use that to make sure every project we do plugs in and fulfills that overall messaging and creates that look and feel that we want around town.
Phil, did you get that?
I think I caught most of it, and that was in reference to the townwide visioning process and how that kind of sets the framework for organizing these, or prioritizing these projects.
Perfect. Go ahead, Mr. Hickey.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, thanks. That was a great comment. But, and Phil, I guess it would be too early, you know, to talk about it, but I like the idea of who do we want to be? What do we want people outside of Hanson to think of us? But the one thing that keeps popping into my head is going to be the funding. Just for example, improved sidewalks or new sidewalks altogether to get from the MBT station up to Plymouth County Hospital or to the Burridge is, and Phil, you said you looked at other communities. Is there funding for that? Or would we be on the hook, you know, for new sidewalks? Because on High Street there isn't. So is that a possibility, or is that something we just can't do?
That's exactly what the part of the end result is. Once we have projects, we're then gonna work with Phil and then the state, and then also a lot of the other information Phil is giving us to be able to identify this. This really is 10, 15 years worth of things.
Absolutely.
It's really gonna come back as the economic development is driving this back to the selectmen to start prioritizing and, you know, and start working down that. And the funding is gonna change as the state starts and creates different focuses. So, but part of this is going to be on the front end, especially for some of the bigger things we're talking about, that Main Street area, is what funding is available today, and then we'll have to decide as a town, how much do we want to bite off?
Yeah, you're right, so we need to but we've talked about this before, I think at a meeting, of having a visioning session for Hanson in general. Like,
Because we have our master plan coming up that we have to do.
just in general, and then, of course, economic growth and development is a critical component. You know, we're just coming off of an override, we don't wanna have that again. So what do we do to avoid that? You know, economic development is gonna be a key component to that. So, and to your point, Jim, and then I think, you know, we take this sort of like list of things, we get our vision for Hanson. What do we want it to look like? What do we, you know, what do we see this town looking at, like 10, 15, 20, 25 years out? Knowing that this is all gonna evolve and we'll have to tweak it as, you know, times change and technologies change. And then we fit this piece into it. This is really just meant as I said at the beginning, a blueprint of things that we think we need to look at. We haven't opined on what the priority of those things are. Some of them are kind of key, like for instance, our subject matter expert on the zoning said, I gotta be honest with you, and he does this for a job. He said, I'm a subject matter expert on zoning. I looked at your zoning, and do you know how conflicting some of your zoning bylaws are? I don't even know what you, like, if I was a proponent trying to apply for something, in some instances, I don't know whether you allow it or you don't allow it. And he's like, and I read it like 15 times. And that's not, you know, I'm not diminishing anybody who may have contributed to it. I think what has happened is over the course of time, what were probably very rock-solid zoning bylaws have become a bit of a crazy quilt, because we've added things and changed bylaws and whatever, and so we've got conflicting things in there. That probably is a good place to start, kind of get a good foundation, and have some, you know, some town-wide visioning of what do we want it to look like? Do we want it to look like the Jetsons down there? Do we want it to be modern? I'm insert heavy sarcasm. Or are we looking for it to look like a quaint New England town with some lighting that people feel comfortable walking along that area? We've literally gotten feedback from people saying they do not feel safe walking to the MBTA. I mean, I don't want people feeling that way. If you don't even feel safe walking to the MBTA, you're probably not gonna linger and stop in a business along the way. So,
Yeah, well, with that being said, you know, we're talking about, you know, master plan for the overall town.
yeah.
We're talking about codification of our bylaws, and then we're also looking at, you know, more focused along Main Street. So this is a pretty pivotal time for the town of Hanson, really exciting time for the town of Hanson, and it's kind of great that we're kind of pausing and saying, this is what needs to come and what is to come, and how do we get there?
But just to
So-
level set, none of this is happening overnight.
No.
Okay, we gotta start with the vision. Now, so a quick hit that might make us all feel a lot better, I know it will make me feel a lot better, is the facade piece. And I really hate to use the analogy of slapping lipstick on a pig, but I'm willing to do that if it makes people not cringe when they drive through that area. So that might be an easy, low-hanging fruit that the committee's already talked about doing. And I don't think anybody's gonna say, please, don't fix up the facades of those buildings down on Main Street. I don't think that's gonna be a controversial subject, and we know there's grant money available. So those are some of the things we'll talk about.
Great.
But I know we've taken way too much time, and Phil, I do want to, on behalf of the Economic Development Committee and the town, I really want to thank you for your follow-through, your perseverance. I know it's been a bit like herding cats with some of the change in staff and people that have been involved, and you've been fantastic, kind of making sure that we keep that end goal in sight, so I thank you.
Thank you very much, and again, I really appreciate the time with you tonight. I know you were quite busy, so I appreciate the feedback. If anyone does have any further questions or comments, you can reach out either to myself or the Economic Development Committee, and they'll share those with me. It's been great working with Hanson. We look forward to wrapping this up in the next month or so. And just to mention on the question of funding, identifying funding sources will be part of each of those project descriptions and project profiles. So again, that will provide kind of a list of some options that are available to potentially fund things like sidewalks or zoning rewrites and things like that. So thank you very much for your time tonight. I really appreciate it.
Great, thank you very much, Phil, and thank you very much for the Economic Development Committee bringing this to us and all the hard work that you guys have done. So for those who are at home and they have an idea or suggestion, you can always email the committee at edc@hanson-ma.gov. So with that being said, our next thing on the agenda is our IT director and an update from his department. Stephen Mulberg, do you mind coming to the podium? And for those who don't know Stephen, he had joined us just a couple of weeks ago, and he's been doing a lot of great work behind the scenes. So, welcome.
Thank you. Welcome for having me. I want to appreciate the opportunity to work with the town of Hanson. So far, everybody's been very welcoming. Just still in my evaluation stage of evaluating everything, but my predecessor, Ryan, has really laid out a good, strong roadmap. So we're just building off of that right now and just trying to clean things up, making some policy changes, and continue to improve the town.
Great.
So if I could add as well, Stephen's been great coming on board. He's been looking to identify where we could use some, where he might have some holes and where he could improve all of our security and so, in our firewalls, so we're not so vulnerable to hacks and all the nasties out there that wish to infiltrate municipal governments to basically take us down. We've also been working with updating our social media outreach. We had a great discussion with Scott Davis, who has been updating our Facebook page. And I think what we're going to try to do is really kick up our communication out there with Facebook, put things on there like our highway with construction, things like that, that would just inform the residents of what might be going on around town. He's going to include sports at Whitman Hanson, just any type of news feed that might be interested. So I think we're going to make a really great team on that, increase the communication, and
More
hopefully.
community outreach.
Yes, exactly.
That's great.
And we just, all the employees are very, very happy with Stephen, very responsive. He's helping everybody get through everything. So I am so glad he's on board, and I hope the selectmen are as well.
Excellent.
Yeah, and I, Mr. Chair, through you, thank you, and we're excited. And I do want to thank Mr. Davis, who has been just sort of rowing by himself, trying to keep our social media alive and doing a pretty good job as a one-person volunteer. But I am hoping that we could do better about little things, like the dump was closed on Friday because there was a power outage, you know, and I know the Board of Health had posted it, but I'm hoping we can have more connectivity to the town Facebook page so that when those different departments, like say Conservation or Board of Health, you know, the different, or maybe you don't, but you'll get there, or Camp Kawani or some of those different subcommittees and what have you, when they've got updates, I'm hoping that we somehow can feed them up to our town Facebook page, so that people don't have to like all of those other pages to get, you know,
Right.
the updates, like meetings, like Board of Selectmen meetings, other main, you know, hearings, like ZBA hearings, and then community-wide events that are nonprofit type of things.
Yeah. I believe that there is an email address for Scott, for the, I think it's like, I don't quote me, but I'll have to find it out for you, but I can get it over to you. As long as people email or inform us, really, I mean, I can get that over to Scott and say, hey, can you post this? Hey, can you post this? Without, you know, no one telling us, it's hard for us to kind of,
Yeah,
you know, get that posted, but absolutely, I think it's a good idea,
okay, great,
yeah.
thank you.
Excellent. Any other questions?
I just have one question. Welcome aboard, Steve.
Thank you, Jim.
Without getting into detail, Lisa mentioned some of the stuff that is wrong or that needs to be updated. You know, just on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being really, really bad, your expert opinion, how bad?
Well, I don't really want to,
It's that bad,
I don't want to
okay.
address things
It's okay.
publicly. Let's
Yeah.
just say.
That,
If it's that bad, that's okay. You got a lot of
We're
work to
working-
do,
we're
I
working
know.
on it. We're working on it. We've already made some progress, so this thing's happening.
Right. Appreciate it.
We're trying.
I knew the answer to that question before I asked.
It's all right, we'll be all right.
Thanks, Steve.
Any other questions? No?
thank you, welcome.
Great, Stephen, we really appreciate you coming in to kind of give us an update, especially only being here for 3-4 weeks at this point. So we're happy to have you aboard, and as always, feel free to reach out if you need anything.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
So right at the moment, seeing how time is of the essence, I just want to go out of order just a little bit, seeing how we have the man of the hour, Mr. Farias. DeFries, sorry. He is here because we are hopefully going to appoint him, subject to planning board approval, to our town planner position. Do you mind taking the podium real quick and just kind of giving us a 2-minute summary of who you are and your background and why you would be a perfect fit for our planning board? Just to kind of give a quick background on this, we've been looking for a town planner for a while now, and everyone around us is also looking for a town planner. And we're very fortunate to have Tony here with us. Lisa, Greer, and myself conducted interviews last week, and we were blown out of the water with his credentials. And we said, we have to get this guy quick. So that was just last week, and here he is before us. So take it away, Tony.
I don't know how do you follow that? My name is Antonio DeFrias. I'm a registered land surveyor in the state Commonwealth of Massachusetts. I've been working in the civil engineering and land surveying trade for just over 30 years. I'm familiar with design. My priority right in the private sector currently is pretty much design work, civil engineering projects, and land surveying. So I've dealt with designing residential subdivisions, commercial site plans, septic plans, comprehensive permit projects, roadway design, drainage design, filing with Conservation Commission, MEPA, dealing with zoning regulations, subdivision control law, FEMA, MISA, natural heritage, all the gambit. Basically, I've been on this side of the table, if you will, with designing projects that need to meet all the regulations that are going to be presented to a town for approval. So as part of being a PLS and passing the exam, we're tested on zoning, subdivision control, land court, all these regulations. So my familiarity with that is extensive, and also I think bringing the experience of being on this side and being able to look at projects and understanding what they are, whether it's a subdivision or Form A plan or a filing with the Conservation Commission. I have that knowledge. I did state to the hiring committee that this would be my first municipal position. I've never held a municipal position in any town. True fact that a lot of towns now seem to be looking for town planners, and there's quite an opening. I've decided after as many years being in the private sector, I was looking for something a little different that allows me to sort of utilize, being a town planner allows me to sort of utilize all my skills that I've have and achieved over the years. So that's where I feel like I'd be an asset to the town if I was to take the position.
Great, excellent. Any questions from the board?
Oh, absolutely.
Ms. Kemet?
I did read your resume, and it's very impressive from the land use perspective. One of the very important roles, in fact, we just spent 45 minutes talking about our economic development, and a critical role in our economic development plan is the planner, because we have to fund this with grants. And I'm just wondering, have you had any grant experience?
No, I have not, and I stated that to the hiring committee.
Okay.
Again, my experience has been in the private sector, so I do not have experience with grants.
Okay. And have you had an opportunity to take a look generally at Hanson from your vantage point of your experience in terms of like 40Bs and 40Rs? Do you have any thoughts on that with the town the size of Hanson?
Yes, I did look at your master plan, which was dated, I believe, was 2008, so it's 13 years old at this point.
Yes, just before you came in, we discussed we know that needs freshening up.
So
Yes.
I did read
Yeah.
through the master plan, and I did agree with some of the points in the master plan, specifically that the area around the train station is an asset and probably an area that should be looked at and expanded, especially for something like a 40R mixed use. One area that, now looking at Google Maps, mind you, is looking at, I'd say to the south of the railroad track, there's like a parcel of land against the swamp that has like three, what I call derelict buildings.
Yes. Yep.
And working, the company I work for, we work out of Bridgewater, so I've been through this area more than one occasion. Obviously, I'm assuming that the town would consider that a blight and sort of a bit of an eyesore. But I look at that as potentially, a mixed use. That'd be probably a good spot for a mixed use. One thing I brought up to the hiring committee was how many people in the town of Hanson use the train? Does the town have any idea how many residents within the town are actually using the train? Or who is using the train and where are they coming from? Is it Hanson, or are they coming from different towns? You know, if you can develop that area and sort of expand, creating a mixed-use zone with, so let's say, whether it's under 40 hour for a single-family zone, or condominium with small businesses, and trying to create an area where people can walk. Most towns lack sidewalks, period. You know, to get from point A to point B, you're walking in the street, and, you know, Hanson seems to be, as the master plan says, is an automobile dependent town, and most towns are. So if you can expand that area with businesses, unfortunately, the pandemic has hurt, let's say, eateries, you know, tremendously. But I always think that's probably a good place to start with some other small businesses. Most towns like Hanson don't want to see large, we'll call it Walmarts and so forth. You know, if you can have smaller businesses, make it a quaint town, that's for. And I think improving the look of the town by, you know, areas that are businesses, just by planting trees, you know, sidewalks, trying to create pedestrian traffic. I did also read in the master plan that the town does have, we'll call it over 55, I'm not going to say, how do I put it? There's a lot of over 55 projects, which is great, but that can also has the downside of putting a burden on the emergency services. So if you can create and gain younger working people into the town that nowadays don't seem to be interested in, say, driving a car, they're more interested in walking. We know, you know, about, you know, the green, you know, and Hanson has a lot of farmland. Hanson has a lot of woods. Hanson has a lot of land that's not usable due to wetlands. So I also read about looking to expand trails, which, you know, is ecotourism a potential for Hanson, you know, with a lot of people that like to hike and get out in the woods. I also noticed there's a horse breeder in town. Is there a possibility of something along that line? You know, there's all kinds of ideas. It's just a matter of figuring out what works best for the town, so that, and affordable housing is always a big one anywhere you are in Massachusetts. And can you achieve that through using 40B? One thing that happens to a lot of towns, and being on this side of the aisle, if a lot of developers know that a town does not have 10%, but has restrictive zoning requirements, and Hanson to some degree does, then those developers are going to come at the town and say, okay, well, you don't meet your 10%, we're going to do a comprehensive permit plan, and they may work with you, but some will not, and just sort of ram it down your throat and tell you, you don't have the 10%.
We are currently in that situation,
Right.
sir.
So if you can
yes.
if you can look at get like I believe it's a housing certificate from the state where you can get to your 10%, but do it incrementally, where you can have, I believe, don't hold me to it, 0.75% per year. So at least if you get a few projects a year, and then the fourth one comes in, you can say, okay, well, hold on, come back next year, so that you can absorb what effects it has on your infrastructure.
Yeah, and we recognize that we failed collectively to really plan for the onslaught of 40Bs. And of course, the contractors are simply doing what contractors do, which is taking advantage of the fact that we failed to plan and that we need that affordable housing because the state has prioritized that over our bylaws. And so that, and just prior to you coming here, we had, our Economic Development Committee had done a presentation, in fact, on the revitalization of Main Street, which we've prioritized. And that's why I had asked about your grant experience, because so much of our success in being able to execute that plan is going to be contingent upon successfully getting grants. And I'm not saying you absolutely must be able to do grants right now, but at least a willingness to roll your sleeves up and learn and jump right in.
Oh, absolutely.
Fortunately, we've got the lovely and talented Lisa Green, who has quite a bit of experience on applying for grants, and I'm sure would be more than willing to share her knowledge with you. I just have one last question, Mr. Chair. Coming into this job, Have you done any work in Hanson? Do you have any conflicts that we should be aware of? Any relationships with any of the large developers or any current projects that are underway or anything of that sort?
No, the current company that I work for, we have not done any work in Hanson. As I was standing outside, as the doors were locked, I couldn't get in, but as I was standing there, I realized I actually have been to this town hall prior to the interview, but it was probably a good 3 years ago, and I think that was maybe for a septic plan. Other than that, no, I'm not familiar with we'll call the players, the local developers. I'm coming into the town really not knowing anything more than I've read and seen, really. You know, I don't know anyone here personally. I don't have any business interests in town or anything to that effect, no.
And I'm sorry, I know I said this was the last question, but if you were to get this position, would this be your exclusive employment?
Yes, that would be my expectation, yes. I mean, as a PLS, I would be looking to also maintain that skill, you know. It's not to say when people know that you're a PLS, you're not gonna have friends, hey, could you do something for me?
Right.
But if I was to engage in anything like that, it would not be within the town of Hanson,
Okay,
at all. Because that's ethically, I don't agree with it. I think that just causes too much of a conflict, and realistically, under 250 CMR was sort of prohibited from doing something like that.
thank you, I really appreciate it.
Perfect. Any other questions from the board?
Well, I mean, Laura took a bunch of my questions, so I appreciate you, you doing it. No, it's great. I'm glad you asked them. Saves everybody from having to listen to me stammer through it. I guess, and you kind of answered indirectly one of the questions I was gonna have, which is, I'm a former chairman of the planning board, was on there for a number of years, and helped actually hire, I was on the hiring committee for the previous one, so, I'm reading now on here that it's subject to planning board approval. So have you met with anybody in the planning board to assess for fit and whether or not?
He's about to go do
I'm
that.
about to do that.
Yes.
So we're doing
He-
selectmen first, then planning board?
Yes.
Okay.
I have disclosed that I do have an interview in another town
Yeah.
that's taking place. It's supposed to be this week. So that is, I disclosed that out there, it's out there. you know.
Okay. So, obviously it's gonna be subject, you're gonna be meeting with them in a little bit. You kind of answered this question, but I just wanna kind of put it out there more directly. So, one of the things that I personally did when I was running or chairing the planning board was make sure that the town planner was helping do what's in the best interest of the town. And it sounds like you kind of alluded to that, and I just wanna make sure, and it's kind of piggybacking off what Laura said a little while ago, that when you're working with developers, it's great to be able to work alongside them, make sure that, because a lot of them are constituents. Some people are just trying to, put additions on houses and do things like that. So it's an information session. But really what it comes back to is you're working on behalf of the townspeople to do what's in the best interest of the town. How do you feel about being able to set those boundaries and limitations and really work within what's in the best interest of the town and be able to set those boundaries and limitations with probably maybe former colleagues? I know you said you never worked with anybody in your private, but you might. Who knows what's gonna happen in the
Absolutely.
future, right?
Sure.
So will you be able to set those limitations and really put those personal issues aside and be able to actually, represent the town in a way that the townspeople deserve?
Well, first and foremost, there's regulations. There's zoning regulations, there's the Wetlands Protection Act, there's the subdivision control law, period. For a project, those regulations are in place to not prevent projects from going through, but to regulate them.
Right.
The bottom line is that's what any developer that comes before the planning board or the zoning or whatever needs to meet, period. I'm not gonna tell them, well, you get a pass, I've seen that in other towns. I know how that, I've always said that, this field is a third engineering, a third politics, and a third salesmanship. So, the bottom line is the regulations are the regulations that we expect to follow. You have to apply some common sense, obviously, but it's what is for the best interest of the town,
Yep.
There are certain projects that a town may not like, but the reality of it is if the regulations are there and allow it, then the best you can do is try and regulate it to minimize the impact. But you unfortunately have to go with it.
Yep, and I like that, the fact that you said that. So, the other thing that I used to do was, we would go do site visits. And this is, kind of what you're saying resonates with me a lot, because there was a certain time where, we'd have some officials representing the town that would go and sign off on plans and say, yes, this was done appropriately. I'd call a meeting at the job site and I'd have them pull the sewer caps up and say, okay, look at this, and we'd find out that in probably 5 years, a good trash truck's gonna go over that and sink the whole thing. We have plenty of developments, plenty of areas around town that are privately owned, that they're not public ways, where there's big divots, sinkholes, developers have ran off on us, they just took what they had, cut their losses, took off. If you ever needed to go and do a site visit similar to that and really hold even our, our town-appointed folks accountable, would you be able to do that?
Yes, but as long as the town would back me up on that.
Yeah,
As long
absolutely.
as long as the regulations are there.
Yep,
And if they're failing to meet those regulations, then sure.
okay,
It's the bottom line.
yep,
I'm just gonna use a quick example. And this is just for a simple job. And it was a septic repair in a different town. And it was what's called the pressure distribution system. And part of that is what it means. It's under pressure. And there was a manifold, a 3-inch manifold, that needed to be under pressure. I went and did an as-built, had it to request of the contractor. And I uncovered the pipe and it said, not for pressure use. Now, you're gonna get contractors not gonna be happy with you because of the fact that you're tying them up. But I told them, look, it says right on it, not for pressure use. You have to take it out. The good thing is he did take it out.
yep,
The bad part was when he graded the lot, which was a small lot, he piled a lot of dirt up against the fence of the neighbor, who in turn called the town and complained. And then his email to me was basically, well, I did a better job than the plan, but if I have to take dirt out, I really don't want to do that. So I pointed out to him, here's the regulations under Title V that talk about grading. That's what your guideline is. If you're not meeting that, and this is what it shows on the plan, take it out.
okay.
He did not like me after that, but the bottom line is I have to, on this side of the fence, we have to follow the regulations, and we also have liabilities.
Yep.
And the same thing applies to the towns. So it's a matter of watching out for not creating situations that could be, cause liability.
Yep. It's all about policy and process, so
Yes.
I do appreciate you saying that. All right, that's it for me.
I just have one.
Quickly, yeah.
Yeah. So you just reminded me that in our current town warrant that we're about to bring to town meeting, we've had, as Mr. Weeks alluded to, several folks in town who have not completed projects. They have either curbing or stormwater management, whatever, fill in the blank. And yes, we've got money, in escrow, but trying to chase after people and get them to finish these projects is just, it's painful. And this ends up leaving homeowners associations holding the bag. And a lot of them really don't have the skills to deal with this or the wherewithal, or maybe they don't all pull together with the common belief of how it should be handled. And so the new bylaw that we're proposing is going to really put the onus back on planning and some of these other boards to enforce this and get closure for people. Because we've got people on private roads, some don't even realize this. I'm sure you run into this all the time. They don't even realize they're on a private road, and then they say to the town, why isn't the drainage working properly? Gee, we don't know, it's not our road, it's a private road. Your, builder didn't finish it correctly. Do you feel like you'd feel comfortable being that guy that would have to follow up on, I know you're saying in the moment and prior to it being finished, but in this case, we're talking about projects that people are already living in the houses. They're already bought these houses. And I know a lot of people say caveat emptor, and I guess that's okay, but really it's not advocating for what's best for the citizens of the town. After the fact, would you feel comfortable, having to maybe file, go to court, whatever, or prevent people from being able to do any business in town is really what the bylaw is going to ask for?
If that's what it takes, then yes, but it would be a lot easier to try and implement regulations that prevent that from happening. And there's ways to do that. For example, if you have a subdivision, as part of releasing of the bond, you can implement regulations that call for an as-built or a partial as-built or a preliminary as-built of the road and the drainage structures, and have the design engineer stamp and sign those plans along with affidavits stating that that drainage is working as designed. So you can implement these things and have steps. Now, is everyone going to like that as far as developers? No. Does that add a layer of regulations and costs to a project? Yes, but if this is an issue for the town that the town is running into, because yes, I do understand, if a developer decides to walk away from a road because he hasn't finished it, the money that he leaves behind is not gonna cover the cost of finishing the road.
That's exactly right.
Yep.
Another thing also is private roads, it lessens the burden of the town as far as maintenance and so forth. But what I tend to find is that when you have private roads, then you have reduced regulations as far as the subdivision control versus a private road. And then after a few years, the people on the road get tired of paying for the plowing, they get tired of going to say, we'd like you to accept this road. And then now you're going to have a road that's in essence, we'll call it substandard versus your regulations. It may not be substandard road, but it's substandard versus your regulations. So now you have to decide, are we going to just take on, let's say if our regulations are a 24-foot wide pavement, are we going to take on a road that's 22 feet wide?
Exactly.
You know? So the private roads, you have the homeowners associations and so forth, but a lot of times, can people get along? Will folks say, okay, if it comes time to repave the road and it costs $100,000, are they gonna have the money to do it?
Right.
Are they gonna not come to the town and say, we need help? You know, or are they just gonna let it go? The same thing applies to the drainage. Towns have a difficult time keeping up with the drainage control structures that are in town on public ways, let alone a private road, you know, being maintained. So, private roads are good, but a lot of times it just might be better to just accept it as a public way or hold the same standard so that if the residents come to you, it's a standardized road system, not something that is, well, that one road is this and one road is that, because the backside of that is a developer looking at you and saying, well, I want to do this road at 20 feet wide. And then you go, well, it's 24. You go, yeah, but you accepted this town road and it's 20 feet wide. And now it's a very complex process. You have to sort of look at the big picture and then but I think you can implement regulations to try and keep them focused and have accountability as far as going through that project until it's finished. And the same thing applies with the bonds. You know, I know there are some developers. Most developers will not want to walk away from and leave money on the table. They just don't. But some will. Yeah, there are scrupulous ones that are just, they'll walk away from it and say, hey, you guys finish it, you know?
All right, thank you.
Mr. Chair, he's due upstairs by 7:15, so.
Great.
the planning
Well,
board.
with that being said, do you have, it looks like you have one question left.
I have, are you kidding?
No?
After
Okay,
Laura and
okay,
Joe,
you
I
just-
got
you ju-
nothing.
You're just bracing the table like you had something. So, Mr. DeFrayis, thank you very much for coming in. With that being said, I am looking for a motion.
So moved. Oh, sorry, early.
I'm looking for a motion to appoint Antonio DeFrayis to town planner, subject to planning board approval.
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion?
I would just like to point out that I would have preferred that the order be that the planning board approved this position first, and then it be brought to us. Just because primarily this gentleman's going to be working with the planning board, and, I mean, although, as I mentioned, I'm on the economic development and the McQuon reuse, and trust me, we'll get to know each other well if you do end up getting appointed, but I just would have preferred, I think, out of respect for how much that group works with him, but I recognize that maybe time didn't permit. I really don't know what the rush,
That's
you
what
know,
it was
yeah.
time.
Going for an interview in another
I
town,
did
and we
speak
didn't
with
want him.
Joe Campbell, and he
Yeah.
was okay with how the timing was,
Okay,
just
as
based
long
on.
as long as they're fine with it.
Yes, I did speak with him, and just based on the time frame and the timing, and we're not meeting again until the 28th and things like that, so he was fine with the timing. And that's why we're going to do it subject to,
Just 2 seconds. And is any of this a wage and personnel thing that we'll have to come back to later?
no.
No? Okay.
Mr. Young?
I just don't want you to make a mistake here. According to the Town Administrator Act, under the Town Administrator Act, it is the planning board that actually votes to appoint the town planner. Okay? So the Board of Selectmen really doesn't vote to appoint the town planner. You can recommend that appointment and that you support the appointment of the town planner to the planning board. But the town plan, according to the Town Administrator Act, Board of Selectmen does not appoint the town planning, the planning board appoints, the elected planning board appoints the town planner.
All right. Well, with that being said, thank you, Mr. Young. With that being said, I'll make my motion, amend my motion to recommend for hire to the planning board.
So moved.
Well, I'll second that motion.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. With that being said, all in favor? Congratulations on step one, Mr. DeFreitas. And good luck with your interview upstairs. Ms. Green, do you mind
I will
escorting him
accompany
upstairs?
Yes.
Thank
I will
you.
be back.
It was nice to meet you.
Very nice meeting you. Good
Mr.
luck.
Weeks, I just have to step out and make a phone call.
him it was our fault.
I know it's kind of all over the place, but I numbered them for you, if you mind. It's just kind of continuing down the line, but I'll be
All
right
right.
back. Thank you.
Review town administrator performance appraisals?
No,
This was one, right?
I think that was for, accept new employee corrective action, but Ms. Green just stepped out, so.
Yeah, she's gone for the next three.
So do you want to do appointments for RJ and Karen and one-day liquor license?
Okay.
And then we'll come back to that?
All right,
Should be
perfect.
just a minute.
Sounds good. All right, so we're gonna jump around a little bit.
Appointments for assessors.
Yeah.
Oh,
No, it's
yeah,
fine, I got it,
yeah.
yep. All right, so we'll jump around, because Ms. Green's just had to step out as well. So we'll jump right over to appointments. So appointments for the assessors. Let's jump right into the assessors appointment.
Did
don't mind
guys-
stepping up to the
Did you
podium?
guys call your meeting to order? Did
Yes,
you, go-
in the hallway.
Yep.
We did, yep,
Legal?
at 7 o'clock.
I know.
The door has been locked out there.
Oh, really? Oh, we'll have to change that. Floor is yours.
Well, good evening. My name is Kathy Keefe, Board of Assessors.
And I'm Tricia King.
Hello.
So we did have a vacancy on the board. Emer McDonough stepped down, geez, I've forgotten. August. Yeah, August, so which left a vacancy on the board, and Lee did reach out to a willing and able candidate who we support and would like to ask for your appointment to the board to make it a complete board.
and I think through you, Mr. Chair, I feel like it's like crazy tonight. I think we had the opportunity to meet Mr. Adams, maybe the last meeting or the one just prior to that, and we all found him to be quite lovely and.
So are there any other final questions around this? Because I think that what we have to do is take a vote, a joint vote, correct?
Yes.
To appoint him. So, let me see what the name, what's the name again?
Joshua Adams.
Joshua Adams, thank you. All right, so I'll
So moved.
entertain a motion to appoint Joshua Adams to the Board of Assessors.
Second.
All right, so we get a motion, a second, so all those in favor, please signify.
Aye.
All right.
Yep.
All right,
Great.
perfect. So congratulations, he's so more appointed. Fantastic.
All right, thank
Oh,
you.
yeah, he seems like a great candidate. It's really nice.
Well qualified.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
I know he did a great job in Hanover, so.
Yeah, it's great, and it's
fantastic.
nice to have, somebody new. We
Always,
appreciate
always,
Emma,
yeah.
but it's nice to have somebody new and,
Always,
yeah,
yep, we do.
great.
Absolutely.
All right.
All right.
Well, thank you.
very
I
much.
really appreciate that. Thank you very much. Next is appoint TJ Rafi to the Bylaw Review Committee.
Mr. Rafi is here, right here.
Hello, TJ. Would you mind stepping up to the podium? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
So hi, TJ Rofi, I live on County Road. It's probably not interesting to many people, but the function of local government is interesting to me and how it functions and why, so bylaws are kinda up my alley.
Well, we are thrilled and amazed that, that you
fits
are
that
interested in.
description.
I wondered if we were gonna have to do some arm twisting to get people onto this committee, but, so far it's you and me. So, and I think we've got somebody else who applied too, so, so we're getting there. And I think, were you gonna ask for a little bit of a background or?
Yeah, oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So, any questions from anybody here so far? Any questions?
No, Tom, I just think it's great. I don't know how long you've lived in Hanson. You said you're relatively new.
About a year and a half.
So any of the bylaws that you would be looking at, that could be ridiculous, where he hasn't lived in town, I think is more of an asset.
Definitely.
somebody that's been in town for a while that, you know, so, yeah, great.
Good to get a fresh perspective, for sure. Especially, you can't get more objective than someone that's recently moved into town. Do you have any experience writing bylaws or doing any of this? No, so this is
Particularly, no.
learn as you go type of thing?
Kinda, yeah.
Okay. And,
I am currently on the Conservation Commission, so I'm
Yep.
kind of familiar with the bylaws and how they're phrased, but not experienced in writing them myself, no.
okay, and you don't necessarily need that. Yeah, okay. Would you think you'd have any conflicts or anything that anybody should know about
Not
that would
that I know of.
preclude you from being able to be on this committee? No?
No,
Okay.
and you know, may I just chime in for a bit on that? I'm not particularly concerned that he hasn't had experience writing bylaws. As Jim mentioned, I think that actually gives us a fresh perspective, and I just want to remind you that the way that the bylaw committee is going to begin is we voted to have Lisa have that organization go through and do the syncing up of state to our local bylaws and kind of take that first pass. And then we'll be going through and doing a sanity check. So I actually think, you know, that it's great that you've stepped up, not for one, but two committees, which people may not say are the most exciting committees in town, but, you know, reasonable people can
Fiance
disagree about
regularly
that.
points out that they're not the most exciting committees in town.
All right, well, if there's nothing else, I'll entertain a motion for appointment. Yes, Mr. Young?
Oh, I just wanted to tell this gentleman that I was one of the original members of the original bylaw committee back in the 1970s when it was first formed. I have a little experience on that, if there's opportunity. And I also want to point out that the reason for having a bylaw committee is not for the bylaw committee to create bylaws. The reason for the bylaw review committee is to review any and all bylaws that are coming and going to be proposed at town meeting to make sure that they go in the proper order in the general bylaws, and also to correct any wording, and as Laura said, any differential between the bylaws that are being put out there and what the state laws actually say. That's the purpose of the general purpose of having a bylaw review committee. And it can be a very interesting committee, as I'm sure you'll find out.
Looking forward to it.
Oh, we have a motion on the floor. We have a second?
Yeah.
You second already?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I didn't, but
You
I,
didn't?
mentally I did, but I didn't say it out loud.
All right, motion second. All right, so all those in favor? All right. Welcome to the committee. Congratulations.
Thanks for stepping up, we appreciate
That's
it.
fantastic. All right, and we have appoint Karen Adolph to the bylaw review committee as well. I have a
Karen here?
series of correspondence here saying that she
She
might be
actually
here.
works 7 PM to 7 AM, so it's gonna be tough for her.
Oh, yeah, okay.
She said she may not be able to attend, and I didn't hear back from her today, so I put her on in case she was able to come in, but I'll follow up with her.
Okay, I mean, we can always, what's the will of the board? Do you want to move forward with an appointment on this without speaking to her, or would you rather wait until she can come?
Rather at least somebody talk to her.
Yeah.
Maybe Greer can set up an appointment.
Have her come in.
Yeah, I agree. We had all agreed as a board that we wanted somebody to set eyes and have a conversation with everybody that applied. And in addition to that, I'm hoping that she's got some flexibility or some availability, because she's noting that she works 7 PM to 7 AM, and most likely, a lot of these meetings would happen at night.
I agree, yeah.
So I think that's something, if you can just probe a little on
Flexibility,
that.
sure.
Obviously, we can be flexible, but, you know, the majority usually of people are available in the evening, so.
Okay,
That could be one of the questions that, you know, you, Lisa, and I could discuss with her.
we'll follow up.
And possibly find out
Absolutely.
Yeah.
what night does work for
Yeah.
her.
I think it's great plan, great idea. All right, so, until conversation. So we had one appointment, one tabling,
All right.
and I didn't light anything on fire, sir.
We
but we're all
tabled
set.
Karen just because she wasn't here,
Okay.
and we had a couple questions, so.
Okay, perfect. And did we take care of Mr. Jameson? All right. Mr. Jameson, do you mind just coming to the podium real quick? Thank you, Mr. Weeks.
You're welcome.
I didn't actually even know it was Jameson, because he was incognito with the mask, so.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hi.
Thank you for your time, and I'd like to make a recommendation for Michael Means to the position of highway mechanic. a lot of thought went into it, and all things considered in the position and his skills and what he brings to the department, I think he'd be an excellent fit with his education experience. And again, is a lot more involved with the highway department than just the mechanic, because that position has to be able to perform all the positions underneath it. So as far as drainage repairs, road repairs, chainsaws, chippers, all that stuff, they have to be familiar with the equipment and the operation of, and to find an outside candidate, we'd be kind of hard pressed in this environment to find someone who's qualified and knowledge of the town's infrastructure. And there's just the fact that we like to hire from within, and I think he deserves the opportunity
Great,
to do a job for us.
great, excellent.
He's been a great team player for me as I've taken the position, so.
That's
can't
always good to
enough
hear.
say that. He's had a total commitment, okay?
Perfect. So with that, do you have any questions?
Oh, I have questions.
Oh.
Yep.
Go ahead, Ms. Gemmitt.
Oh, no, I'm not saying, go ahead, Jim.
Oh, no, you go first.
Okay, so I'm just curious, I know Mr. Meads had applied before for this position, and when I spoke to him at the time, and it was probably about 2 years ago or so, if I'm, you know, my timelines are a little blurred, but it was within the last couple of years. He had expressed concern that he didn't get it, and I asked at the time, gee, I didn't know that you were a mechanic, because I didn't know.
Sure.
And he said, well, I am, but I'm not up to date.
Yeah.
And I said, well, when was the last, you know, when was your last certification, or when did you go to school? And he said it had been a while ago, and at that point I said, geez, you know, are you currently certified? And he said, no, I'm not. And I said, you know, with all due respect, I don't know anything about cars. I would be the first person to tell you that. My husband would be the second, but, you know, I don't know anything about cars, but I said it would seem to me that in the years that since you were certified and now, a lot has changed about cars. You know, a lot of this stuff has become computerized and incredibly complex. And he did make a representation at the time that he would be willing to get recertified, but I guess my question to you is he currently certified and up to date?
No, and the previous people that had held the position weren't also, didn't have the certifications. Something like that, you have to, it's a lot of computerized things you just say. If you worked for like an automotive dealership or something like that, you'd have to keep current with those. They have training programs, and the town's just not equipped to provide that training, or to get someone with those certifications, you'd be hard pressed to find someone in the salary range that we offer to have those certifications. He has education in automotive, experience working at car dealerships, experience and education in pumps and hydraulics, and just knowledge of the general repairs that we have to do. He wouldn't be able to do fire engines, stuff like that, because you have to be certified, and the previous people we had didn't have those certifications. So as far as doing, you know, oil changes, brake, stuff like that, stuff that we handle, a lot of the more complex stuff we have to send out. Even if you had a certified mechanic, he doesn't have like the Caterpillar software. We have to send it to Caterpillar. It's all emissions, it's all computerized. So we'd have to spend, you know, a tremendous amount of money to have that software, testing equipment, and diagnostic tools for him to use. So we don't have the things in place that would facilitate that anyway.
So Jameson, so what you're saying is he's going to be doing the basics, like oil change,
Yeah, maintaining the snow equipment, hydraulics.
Right.
You know, as far as like taking an engine out of a large truck type of thing, we'd have to send that out. We'd have to send that out anyway because we don't have the lifting hoists, you know, just the tools to do that type of work.
Okay.
So there's always been a certain aspect of things that would have to go, but just because we're not technically able to do it. So it's not necessarily the skill level, it's just the equipment and the diagnostic equipment required to do that. So.
And what is the salary that we're, range? You don't have to give me the, but, you know.
Well, I mean, it's probably, might be half of what they would make on the outside type of thing, if you want the comparison.
Okay, and I'm sorry, just one last question, maybe last, hopefully last question. Did we post, how?
So, yep, so this is, this posting had to be internal first, from
Yes,
what
and
I understand with the union contract, and Ms. Federoff, feel free to interject when I'm, so it has to be internal first, and we had 2 internal candidates, correct?
And then reviewing the previous batch of applications, there was only one that was more qualified, and he came and went. The other ones, I couldn't see as being any more qualified than, and to say that he can do all the things of the subordinate jobs is very important, so.
So, but to the requirement to post internally, what does it take once we post internally to post it externally to? Because I'll be honest with you, lately I've been feeling as though we are not exercising our absolute due diligence. And if it's a case that we're not paying enough, then we need to have that conversation and be real with each other. Like, we're not paying enough, and so we're not getting the right candidate. And then we have the conversation about whether we find a way to pay for, and I know that at times we are a low-paying town. We've compared that. But, and that's one conversation, but I lately have been feeling as though we're not being exhaustive and making sure that we're getting the apps, and this is not anything against Mike Means, because I don't know anything about mechanics or qualifications, that we're getting the absolute right person for the job, not just a person who's willing to settle for the salary that we're willing to pay.
So I don't think it's necessarily salary, but it's our contractual agreement with the union.
Yeah, the collective bargaining agreement requires you to post internally, and then if no candidates can satisfy the minimum criteria, or they have some other thing that will prevent them from taking the promotion opportunity, that's when you can post outside. But you can't post externally until you've exhausted your pool from the inside. So what you do is you look at the job description, see if those minimum skills are qualified, then figure out whether or not there are other things that would prevent a promotional opportunity, and then make your selection from there. If, for example, you don't have people, and it's a mandatory requirement that you have a CDL, for example, and there's no time frame to come into compliance with that spelled out in the job description, well, then that person wouldn't qualify and you can move to the outside.
Yeah, there's no qualifications, automotive, there's no certifications required in the current job description.
We don't have any certification, so our town mechanic we don't have a requirement in our job description that there's any certification for that person.
No, just CDL licenses, hoisting licenses, be able to operate all the equipment and maintain and repair the equipment,
Okay.
which he can meet.
So, and Laura, that brings up a great question, but not, we've already discussed it, but point of order is we're looking to hire Mike Means. But what you said is absolutely true. So Jameson, I would ask you, does Mike have a CDL or a hoisting license?
Yes, he has all the licenses.
He
He's
has
senior heavy
all the
equipment
licenses,
operator.
and they're all current?
Yes.
Okay. But you want to be honest, you want to get down to the brass tacks, bottom line. It took 2 months because of vacations, leave of absence, whatever you want to call it, COVID-19, it doesn't really matter. We don't have enough time to go out, find someone that would have more qualifications, we'll say, than Mike, or the last guy we had, because we need to get ready for snow. Mike can definitely change brakes, do the tires, change the oil, but it took 2 months to hire internally. If we go through the process, we're gonna be behind the 8 ball on any winter storms that we have. Am I right in saying that,
We don't
Jameson?
have anyone in place, potentially.
Right.
Who is doing the work now?
They chip in Kevin and Mike, but there's not a designated, because they have to get an increase in pay and all that, and they're needed out on the road, so we really need the position to be filled.
So that's just.
I'm sorry, Joe, just to continue with my thought. One of the problems that we do have, Laura, is that under the job description, we have master mechanic, which Jameson explained that very eloquently, and we have mechanic's helper, which is way down the line. We need to find something, and obviously we can't do it tonight, that it's going to be in between those, where it's a mechanic, and this is what he does. But Mike's has both a CDL and a hoisting license. All his licenses are up to date. And the question that I would have asked you, Jameson, it does say that he has to have his own tools.
Yeah, and he does.
So if he doesn't have the tools, he needs to buy them.
No, that was one of the requirements, and he does, he has extensive tool set.
Yeah.
So he can do, you know, front bearings, ball joints, all that, he has all
Yeah.
those tools for that type of work.
Mr. Weeks,
Yeah,
sorry.
I just think, you know, for this, two points. First is, I think Mike's more than qualified to do this job. I think he seems like he's been around it for a long time. My only thing is, you know, I'm gonna keep saying it over and over again. I'd rather have, when it comes to just filling it because we don't have enough time or whatever, I'd rather have a vacant seat than an unqualified person for a position. So if it takes us an extra month or two to find somebody, 3 months, as long as we get the right person, I'm good with that. In this particular instance, I have faith in Mike that he knows how to do this, because he's been around it long enough.
I didn't think he could do the job, so.
Well, yeah, I agree, and he's been around the system long enough that he knows it pretty well. But, you know, outside of the fact that this one particular person, you know, seems to be qualified for this particular role, for me personally, in the private world, I've made decisions based off of necessity and immediacy of a problem, and it's always burned me in the end. Every single time, it's never worked out. I'd rather wait the extra month or however long it takes to find the right person, than just to fill a gap because we feel like we have to, because there's a potential fire down the, but again, it goes outside the scope of this, so I don't want to belabor the
Yeah,
point too
this
much.
is more, sorry, you're getting caught up. This is more procedural, not
Yeah.
just your situation.
Yeah, because this, I mean, we're lucky to have a candidate that we can kind of look to on this one. So if you're looking for a motion, I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion to appoint Michael Means as a highway mechanic.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Can I just ask?
Discussion, yep, go ahead.
Yeah, who exactly was part of the group that was making the decision about hiring, Mr. Beans?
Ms. Green, do you mind answering that?
Oh,
Who was
I
on the
was-
interview
I
for?
I was a part of the interview process, yes.
I said, who else was part of the interview
Oh, myself, Greer was present, Jameson was present, Stephen Graham was present, and Kurt McLean was present.
And it's so unusual, we don't have Mr. McLean here. Usually he comes to give us his vantage point on hiring. Was he in favor of hiring Mr. Means?
He had some, however, given that who we had for candidates, he did finally agree that the candidate that we're looking to appoint and give our support to was the best candidate.
Okay.
All right, so we have a motion made and seconded. Any further questions?
I'm sorry, one other, so is there a probationary period or anything for this, or is it just,
No, there's never been for that position.
okay, okay.
It's in the collective bargaining agreement.
He's not new.
All right, with that being said, I'll move to the vote. All in favor? 4-0.
Hey, thank you very much.
Thank you very
I
much,
appreciate your
Jameson.
support,
Thanks for
yes.
coming in tonight. Appreciate it.
Jameson.
Sorry, I'm just trying to get caught up here. We did August donations.
We didn't do that yet.
Oh, no, we
No,
didn't.
we didn't do that.
Okay, so in our packet, we have August donations from Candyland Ice Cream of $81 to the 200th Anniversary Committee. Do I hear a motion to accept this donation? And moved and seconded, all in favor? Say aye. Great, thank you. So our next item on the agenda for new business is to review and adopt employee corrective action and warning forms. Ms. Green.
Yes, members of the board. So in evaluating some of the personnel procedures that the town has in place, I kind of discovered that there really isn't any type of formal forms for connected with disciplining of employees. So I drafted 2 different forms that I would like the board to look at and possibly recommend. One is called the corrective action form. So this would be a form if we have an employee who has some job performance issues or behavior and conduct issues. And in the back of the form, this would identify whether this is going to be a verbal warning, and if it is, what we do, and same, or a written reprimand. And this allows us to detail the action that took place that brought forth the need for this type of form. And then what can be done to correct the problem. The employee has an opportunity to provide some comments. The supervisor or department head would provide comments. And what this does, this allows us to document anything that is done with employees that would thereby go into their personnel file. Every town has formalities that they follow for human resources. Documentation is the best course of action that we can take if we ever have employees that are having any performance issues or conduct or behavioral issues. These are the right steps to take if it requires further action. Then we also have an employee warning form. Once we issue the verbal warning, the corrective action form is also a written reprimand, but also with that would go with an employee warning warning form. Would also outlines the reason for the warning. Again, there'd be documentation as far as the actions that warrant the warning, what can be done by the employee to take actions to correct the behavior or the non-performance of the job. Again, the employee signs, the supervisor signs, copy of it goes to the employee, copy of it in the personnel file, and again, we've begun a very good, effective process in documenting any disciplinary actions that have to be taken towards employees, whereas we don't have that system in place right now.
Perfect. So, and then also too, just for the board and anyone at home that doesn't get to see behind the scenes, since Ms. Green has come in, one of her first thing was actually starting to update personnel files, which is
Impressive.
it's impressive. You know, we are so behind in town hall. I know that we're understaffed, underpaid, but it's nice to see that we're still making progress and we're taking the next step. So, Ms. Green, thank you very much for putting this together. And with that being said, any comments? Mr. Weeks?
Yes. So do both these forms go together? If you give out one, do you give the other? Or is one?
Only if it's a written warning or reprimand. So if it's just a verbal warning, just the corrective action form is given to the employee and filled out. Because it talks about what action brought us to this point. It outlines, again, if it's a job performance issue, it will outline what the employee, what steps they can take to improve their job performance. If it's a conduct issue, again, the steps that can be taken to improve the conduct. And then the employee comments, and then it's just checked on the back that this is a verbal warning. If it's moved forward to a written reprimand, this form here, we would check written reprimand and we put the date. And then at that time, we would also issue the warning form. So there would be no misunderstanding or confusion with the employee as to where they are in the process. So this is, the corrective action form is kind of the first step. So it's checked off a verbal and the date, and then everybody signs it. But then if the job performance does not improve or they have another incident of behavior or conduct, this form comes out, the written warning is checked, a written reprimand, the date, and then the warning form is then filled out. So there's no confusion, there's no misunderstandings of where the employee stands as far as their conduct or job performance issues.
My only thing, you know, if you want to, I would just take out where it says follow-up meeting date, if any, on both of them. I would just take out the if any and just always have a follow-up date, because for me, you know, looking at this, I can't tell you how many times we've given out performance improvement plans, corrective action plans, whatever, and the follow-up never happens. And then how do you keep the person keeping people accountable unless I know that there absolutely is going to be a follow-up date, so that way I know the person supervising the person is actually supervising the person. So I want to, you know, kind of create that narrative and make sure that there's something happening. But again, you don't necessarily have to. The if any always kind of gives wiggle room that it can be forgotten.
I understand.
So.
I can absolutely make that.
Mr. Hickey, did you have anything?
Yeah. basically, what's the end game? I have to be very careful. Everybody knows that I'm in the union by day, 31 years a Teamster. I sit on the different side of the table at night, or any town business. But we have, so my first part of the question would be, is this just for town hall or all our unions? And what is the end game?
So this is for all Hanson Town employees.
Okay.
Doesn't matter whether they're in or out of the union. Anytime a member of the union is going to receive any of these forms, we would invite the union steward to come in, the department head comes in. So this is not just a one-on-one, there's other members present. And basically, again, this is just the documented record of actions, job performance issues with an employee. So that if it goes to a step where we have to discuss suspension or termination, we have these records in place in the personnel file that will document the history and what we've done to support this employee. If there's an issue going on in their private life, maybe this gives us an idea that there is an underlying problem that we could help them through. And then if it continues, again, we have it documented that, okay, we've taken this process, the behavior hasn't improved, we've gone through this process, and then we have another incident or of job performance or behavior. So then now we're at the third, then we bring in our town council and then decide the next steps. But we've got this all in place that shows what we have done.
Great, thanks, Lisa.
Chief?
So, two things. One, we already have, that's a lot of budget for doing this, but we already have a system at the police department.
Okay.
Number one. Number two, with police reform, I'm already getting feedback on how we're supposed to do things like this. So I strongly suggest that you leave me out of this, and my department out of it.
I could certainly,
Okay.
police and fire, we can leave out.
For 7 years, it's worked for us over there, so. But, like I said, there's forms coming down from the state as they're doing the posts that could conflict with some of these, or might cause union members problems when they shouldn't have it, so.
Perfect.
So we have a higher authority in that, so
Right,
these
and
are
it
just
may already
for
be
town
instituted
hall.
at the fire department and at highway.
Sounds like they already have their procedures in
Yeah,
place.
it's
So
quite
this would be
possible
mainly
it's
just for
already
town
I
hall.
don't know about
then.
highway.
I think highway does
Like,
not.
Fire and police, I think.
They've always relied on
Oh,
the town
so
administrator.
highway. So this would cover highway then
Yeah.
as well.
Yes, Ms. Kennett?
I always like to make sure that a term is not a subjective term, and it's something that everybody's going to agree on, what does that mean? So, and tardiness, I think we can agree, what's that gonna, what that means. Fighting, kinda clear on that one. Rudeness seems extremely subjective, and I'm not sure if you might want to be more specific, about what you mean. You know, what you might consider rude, I might consider acceptable. And just the way, it might be like, hey, that's just the way I talk, people might think I'm rude or whatever. So I just would hate to see that be one of the things. It is such a slippery little slope of interpretation. Otherwise, I think it's great. I applaud you taking this initiative. I love the idea that we're gonna be consistent with the way we're dealing with this, documenting it. And I think it's gonna ultimately help the employees to have complete clarity on what is being said to them, what is being expected of them, and all of that. So I applaud you for taking the initiative, and I thank you.
Absolutely. And I can work with Kate on these as well.
So with that being said, do I hear a motion to accept, where am I? Motion to accept these forms with suggested edits and suggestions. Perfect.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor? 4-0. Chief, are you here for anything specific tonight, or
Later on.
executive session? Okay, I just want to see if I could move you along. Yeah, all right. With that being said, review and adopt new corrective action. So next thing on the agenda is to review town administrator's performance appraisals. In the past, what we have always done was each select person would individually meet with the town administrator, just as doing an appraisal on recorded and televised television is kind of It's just, I just don't like doing it that way. With that being said, in our packet, we have an aggregate of all the comments made from selectmen and their appraisals. Overall, it was good, very good. So what I would recommend to the board is to meet reviews from everybody. Ms. Getson?
Mr. Mitchell has been, I think, laid up, so
Okay.
I've not received
He's
one
been
from him.
preoccupied, yeah.
And second thing, may I suggest that Lisa schedule time with us? That through Greer, that Lisa affirmatively reach out and
Okay.
schedule time with each one of us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yep, so,
Do you want me to stay, or would you like me to step out?
if you don't mind just stepping out for this next
I'm happy
topic,
to.
that'd be great.
Sure.
Thank you.
But you can watch it on YouTube tomorrow afternoon.
You can watch it live. You'll watch it live upstairs.
Yeah. Oh, don't go upstairs.
I'll come get you.
Well, she is at town hall. We don't have the greatest,
The revenues.
yeah.
Fun
we did
working
that.
on that.
Yeah.
All right, so with the next item on the agenda, with a good performance appraisal, is to discuss the possible title change / contract amendment for interim town administrator. I think that Lisa's been doing a great job. One of the things that I kind of keep on hearing as I make my way through town hall is, well, we'll see how long Lisa's with us. We'll see how long Lisa's with us. She's interim. And I think at this point, I don't know where the board stands, but I personally would like to keep her. And I would like to see her become town administrator and drop the interim. So I'll open it up to discussion to the board and just see where we are.
Well, I think that she's done an outstanding job hitting the, hitting the road and just running. And I mean, boy, did she get handed a lot of ticking little time bombs. Not getting into any detail, but you guys all know. I just have more of a procedural question. Are we able to discuss that here without discussing it in wage and personnel? I don't know what the proper protocol is for that.
This is my first rodeo with something like this. I would actually be deferring to you.
You're the appointing, the Board of Selectmen is the appointing authority. Wage and personnel would be said, no, because she's not a bylaw employee, she's
Okay.
a contract
All right,
employee.
I just wanted to make sure that we were like not doing anything weird and misstepping.
She has a personal services contract, so you're all fine.
Yeah, I mean, I really, I can think of so many different layers of where Lisa has really done an amazing job, and I put that in my review, and I'll talk to her more about it in person. I've got a couple little concerns, nothing that I would, in any way, shape, or form would prevent me from wanting to make her the permanent town administrator. My only concern is harkening back to what I said earlier when we were talking about Mike Means. Have we made sure we've done the due diligence? And I just say that because Mr. Weeks keeps reminding us of process and procedure, and I know that might sound like I'm making light of it, but I'm actually not, because it's helpful for me to have somebody constantly go like, are we being consistent? Are we being consistent? Because it's so easy in the moment to be like, oh, I think we're doing the right thing, but then afterwards you're like, but we handled it this way for that person and this way for that. So I am 100% in favor of Lisa being the permanent town administrator, and I agree that it's made it difficult for her to do the job, not having that permanency. As wonderful as the town hall staff is, it's been a bit of a revolving door for them all, and they're sort of like, really? Let's see how long you're gonna stick around. So I'm in favor of it. I don't know, are there any pitfalls for the unwary here, Kate, that we should be thinking about, or?
It's really your discretion. You observe Lisa do her job in terms of process and, that the only alternative you have is to put out a request for, qualifications and see if people respond. But, if you're satisfied with the performance, just as you reappoint, town administrators following their three-year term, there's no requirement to do an RFQ.
I would feel so uncomfortable doing an RFQ because I feel like we've worked so closely with her and she saved our bacon on so many things in a very short period of time. And she's demonstrated consistently that she's capable of doing the job. To me, it would be a vote of no confidence almost to do that.
Agreed. There are pitfalls when you do it, for sure.
So, and then also too, I just want to throw this out there because I don't think many people know this either. She goes constantly above and beyond. She is here past 5 o'clock.
Yes.
She's working at home. She's working on the weekends. And we had an incident where we had a student who did not have transportation to Bristol Aggie. So what did she do? She said, hop in my Camaro. I'll drive you where you need to go.
Until we could figure
it out. And she figured it out. She got the student transportation. But you don't see too many town administrators willing to chomp at the bit and say, let's do it. She's here for the best interest for the town of Hanson. And I think to make sure that she's successful, we have to drop the title, the intro.
Yep.
Mr. Weeks, do you have anything?
Yeah, I mean, if I'm being fully transparent, it was hard for me to fill out this because I don't have as much background for you. And we're missing 20% of our board. So I don't feel confident that I can actually make an informed decision on this, because I don't have the information. I like to go through a town meeting in which she does it by herself, because Mr. Stanbrook was there the first time. I don't even know what, how it's gonna be handled. I think an important component of being a town administrator, and one of the accomplishments that she had listed, is being able to help develop the warrant. I wanna see her actually execute the warrant. I want to see the rolling out of the warrant. I don't have any of that information. I don't. So, I mean, the best I can do is an abstention vote if we take it tonight, but I'd feel a lot more comfortable if this happened after town meeting when we actually have, when I have a little bit more. Because again, I still stand by. I am not going to put somebody in place simply because we need somebody. I've been through 7 town administrators in 10 years, been through 3 town planners in 10 years. I want to make sure that we have the right person, right fit, and I need a little bit more information personally to make it happen.
If I may, I believe that the next item was that Ms. Green was going to ask the board's opinion on her attending the ICMA conference, which is October 1st through the 6th. This is the International Association of Managers, and she would be gone.
She would miss town meeting.
For town meeting. I did tell her that she should at least pose the question to you, because my first year here, Mary Marini went on vacation during town meeting. So, I believe it was the fall town meeting. Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know, that's just something.
Right, so there's precedents where we were missing our town administrator.
Just so you know, that's
Well, she
going to
was
come up.
I mean, that's not apples to apples.
No, but you make a good point. That is a large part of the, I mean,
Yeah, it's one of the biggest.
like twice a year, the Showtime folks, and it's critical to, it's the underpinning of everything we do. You also make a fair point that we're missing 20% of the feedback of this 100% CEO board here. That said, I haven't seen anything in the remaining 80% that would give me pause. I mean, yeah, and I don't know, I guess the ICMA thing, at first I sort of, that did cause me to like skip a little heartbeat, I'm not gonna lie, when I was like, what, she's not gonna be there at the town meeting, who's gonna be running the show? And I know it isn't just the Lisa Green show, it's not just the town administrator show, we've got all kinds of other people, we've got Kate and you and all of us, and FinCom, and, so Todd, of course, he's, critical.
We're already in a full sweat about town meeting.
Yeah. So, yeah, but on the other hand, I don't want it to come off as a vote of no confidence that we're not, I have to tell you, and I know, I agree with what you say about the revolving door. I think I've had the benefit, and I use that word very loosely, of working with 2 prior town administrators, and the difference is stark. Positive, in a positive way. The responsiveness, the coming up with ideas on her own, the leadership, it's just stark. Yeah.
Mr. Hickey?
Oh, yeah, I got a lot. Kate? All contracts are public record, right?
They are.
So any citizen could look at any town employee, contracted or whatever, okay.
That is correct.
This to me is very simple. And Matt brought it up, I had actually said it at a wage and personnel meeting, and Matt had said it's gonna be on the agenda for tonight. Alls it is taking off interim. Her contract runs out next August. So it's just taking off the interim, making Lisa the town administrator for the next 8 months, 9 months, whatever it is, I don't even care. And I'm gonna use one of Laura's analogies, we're putting the cart before the horse. We're talking about what could happen, it's tonight, just take interim off. Now, in her contract is for 1 year. Kenny and I set it up, and I gave Lisa my word that after 6 months, we would talk about renegotiating her contract for a regular 3-year town administrator contract. That's what seems to be what everybody does. Now, after the first 2 years, Kate, correct me if I'm wrong, when you have a town administrator, the first 2 years, after that second year, you have to start renegotiating or say, we're not gonna use you anymore, we don't want your services.
That's true.
Okay, and whatever the town administrator does for whatever town, they can either stay, collect a paycheck, or leave and get a job somewhere else. We did that due diligence, where we hired a company for $10,000, and they got us a guy for 1 year, 16 months. And I said it before, I'll say it again now, we didn't get a bang for our buck.
No.
So all we're doing tonight is looking to take interim off. That's it.
And that's clarifying for me.
Yep,
It
and
really is.
if she misses
Yep.
town meeting, she misses town meeting because she wants to be a better town administrator.
You know,
And-
the president of the ICMA for the last several years is the manager in Lexington, Massachusetts. Wants to run in those circles.
Yep, absolutely. So, and we'll discuss that when Kenny is here, when all 5 of us can sit down with Lisa and discuss a new contract, which is coming up before November 1st. Because Kenny and I gave her our word that after 6 months, we would discuss a new contract. Now, if you want to go up, we can discuss all that other stuff
No,
later.
you know, Jim, no, you really clarified for me that we're just removing interim. The contract remains the same. I have no issues with it.
Okay.
No issues.
So do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second. Do I hear a second?
Yep.
Discussion. Mr. Young?
Question. And I have no problem with Ms. Green, I'm sure she's very qualified for the position of town administrator, but you're doing something you are doing something that's totally unprecedented. You're elevating a person to the position of town administrator, full-fledged town administrator. And you're not taking it out to the general public, you're not taking that position to anyone in the town of Hanson who might be just as qualified or more qualified, or any town employee who may think that they're just as qualified or more qualified. So that's an unprecedented action on the part of the Board of Selectmen, and I've been involved with it. I was involved with it when that position first came into being back in the early, mid-1980s.
Yes, but have you ever made an interim town administrator the full-time town administrator?
No, we had one interim town administrator, and that was Richard LaCamera. And we knew that we did that only because, and we hired him without going out to the general public and finding out, only because we knew he was retired and he didn't want the position of full-time town administrator, and he was only going to be available for about 6 months, okay? And after that, we took it out to the general public. We posted it in MMA and wherever we had to post it, to give everyone in town and everybody in the area or anybody who thought they were qualified for the position a chance to apply for it. And that's a different, you're doing something here that's like totally unprecedented. And I agree with you, one of the most important functions of the town administrator is the entire budget process. Sitting with each department head, reviewing all of their budgets that are going to be put forward, so she can make a recommendation to the selectmen, and to the finance committee as to what she feels is the right recommendation for that particular department. She hasn't been through that process alone, neither here nor in the town of Whitman, when she was only the assistant under Frank. And she was the interim for a very short time over here. So she's never really held the position in any town as the full-time town administrator rather than the interim town administrator.
Okay, but can I just clarify something here? Because, yes, I recognize it may be quote-unquote unprecedented, but I do want to remind you that just prior to her, we had somebody who was here for 16 months. And for his hiring, we went through an exhaustive search of people just 16 months prior.
She was number 4 on the list.
And she was on the list.
And you're absolutely right, Laura. And Bruce, I'd like to ask you, you were a selectman for a long time, and I appreciate all you did for this town. But did you ever have a town administrator that lasted more than one contract?
Did I have, yes, Mr. Finglas lasted like maybe 2.5 contracts.
Okay.
Before he was not reappointed. And.
How long were those contracts?
And the initial town administrator that we had, under a different title, he was here probably about 17 years, all right?
Okay, so
before he was unceremoniously.
Okay.
Bye-bye, but that was, I'm sure you remember what those
Oh, yeah.
circumstances were. So,
Thank you,
yeah,
Mr. Chair.
Yes, we have.
No, but Jim, back to Jim's earlier point though, Matt, we're not extending her contract at this point. We're simply changing the title of what she is. Her contract remains in place and it terminates in
June of 2022.
Right.
Yep.
So what?
As Mr. Young said, I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, but I think Kate is going to congratulate this board on an unprecedented move. I'm so excited I can't even speak.
Well, I would just like to disagree with one thing Mr. Young said. It may be unprecedented for Hanson, but it's certainly not unprecedented elsewhere. There are those interim town administrators that are retirees, and they do it for a few months to help people out, a Band-Aid, while they do a extensive search, right? So there's a search in progress, but you have a town administrator who's left and you have that Band-Aid approach. So, but there are certainly many, many examples of interims that morph into a permanent without doing an exhaustive search, because it's sort of like a probationary period. You have the benefit of actually seeing the people in action as opposed to how they appear on paper or how they interview. So in that sense, it's actually quite positive. And then certainly, contracts are renewed with town administrators on a routine basis without going out and doing an extensive search every 3 years. So that takes place all over the Commonwealth routinely.
So, and then one other thing too, that I just want to ask the board, didn't we have an interim town planner, Miss Petty, that we then promoted into town planner without going back out? So with that being said, I'll move to the vote. All in favor, I have a motion and second, right?
Yep.
Yes.
So all in favor to drop interim from Lisa's title as town administrator, say aye. And
I'm abstaining. Like I
abstaining?
said.
Okay.
Yep.
So 3-0-1.
Okay.
All right, and Grant, when you're ready, can you just grab
Yes, I'll
Ms.
go
Green?
get her now.
Lisa's.
Thank you.
Lisa, you can come in now.
She's standing right out the door.
I think she ran up to the planning board to see how that went.
Okay. Oh, here she comes. All right, so the next item on the agenda, and there she is, our town administrator. So with that being said, to discuss Ms. Green attending the ICMA conference from October 1st through the 6th, and the reason why we wanted to discuss this was because we have town meeting on the 4th, I believe. So, Ms. Green, can you just kind of bring us up to speed what ICMA is and go from there?
So ICMA is the International Community and Municipal Association. And it's a countrywide association that just works with municipalities, with managers and things like that. This conference came about, and I was awarded a scholarship for this back in July. Booked the airline tickets, which are non-refundable, and then it hits that, this is right in falls, and then town meeting is scheduled right at the same time. So I would like to leave it up to the board. This conference is very beneficial, which they have a lot of workshops that deal with human resources and just a lot of problems that are facing municipalities these days. But I would leave it up to the board of whether they feel it's more important for me to be here at town meeting, October special town meeting, or whether they feel that it would be beneficial for me to attend the conference. So the airline tickets, of course, I went with the lowest price tickets, which are non-refundable. And I gather I would need to return the scholarship back to Mass Municipal Association, who awarded me the scholarship. And maybe they would let me apply it to next year, but I will leave that up to the board.
So just to set precedence is what Ms. Getson just said, where, was it last fall town meeting?
It's
Where
October of 2019.
2019,
Yeah.
where we did have our interim town administrator not be able to attend, and we were able to successfully pull off town meeting between having our legal team there, to have our finance committee there, have our board there, and our assistant as well. We have our and the town accountant there as well, and it went over smooth. It went fine, and I think that this might be a good benefit for Ms. Green to be able to go out and get the professional development, and I think we'll be okay on this town meeting. And then in the future, moving forward, we'll make sure that Ms. Green is present. So with that being said, any comments from the board on thoughts?
I just, I mean, this is sort of like a question, like sort of a rhetorical question. Can you just give us an assurance that you're going to have everything nailed down and that you're gonna have the sufficient people and adequate support for us at town meeting, so that we're not floundering in your absence?
Absolutely. We have the team working on it every day, so that by the 28th of September, well, we'll need to, the warrant will be posted by then, and then by the 28th, when we have whatever follow-up we need, everything will be in place, and I'll make sure that everybody knows where they need to be, and if there's any questions, I'm there to answer it.
I mean, in the future, look, I think it's a great honor that you got the scholarship. I think it's wonderful that you're gonna be getting that additional education, and I think we need to be consistent, right? I mean, we've said as a board all along that we want to encourage people to get additional education in whatever their fields are, whether it's police or fire or whomever. And we want to have the best and most qualified people that we can have, and we want to encourage them by having them do these types of things. So, that said, in the future, hopefully we could avoid any scheduling conflicts. I know this was sort of, I think it just happened and we couldn't really do much about it.
Yeah, that will definitely be a focus going forward, to look at these dates and then make sure we're not gonna have any type of a town meeting or a special town meeting or annual town meeting that fall within, and if we do, then it's a no-go, basically.
And I did feel a little like, oh, I have to catch my breath on that one. But once I started thinking about it and I started replaying all of the town meetings that I've been to and been part of, I started thinking, to be quite honest with you, the majority of the administrator plays is in orchestrating and getting us ready for town meeting. And so there's sort of like the person who's directing the play, but that doesn't mean the director really has to be there on the night of the play. Like, if everybody knows their roles and everybody knows their lines, and we've got everything all documented and we've got a bunch of support staff, which we do, including ourselves, I think that the proof will be in the pudding that you did your job well, because it will go smoothly. And so few times have we even really had to get our town administrator up to the microphone to even answer questions. And certainly we're gonna have legal counsel there. We're gonna have our town accountant, and really those are the questions. Usually it comes down to, do we have the money and is this legally okay to do? So I think I'm okay with it.
And also what you just said too is, are we going to be prepared? our next meeting for the Board of Selectmen on the 27th?
8th.
28th.
We're doing town meeting preview. So this is a great opportunity for us to go through the warrant, have any questions for anyone at home watching. If they have any questions, they can even just email us the questions rather than showing up tonight. Mr. Hickey, did you have anything?
I'm fine with that.
Could I
Ms.
ask a
Getson.
quick question? Thank you. This just occurred to me. Now, Sean Keeley will be coming in on the 28th, but I had heard some board members say that they liked the fact that some of the warrant articles were part of a consent agenda,
Yes,
A,
yes.
and/or B, that the town moderator made all the motions.
Yep.
And that it sort of streamlined things. I
Yes.
don't know what
Yes.
the board's pleasure would be for this town meeting. So,
Same, the way it's been
Yeah,
going.
we absolutely loved it.
The last couple, yeah, absolutely.
all right, no, thank you.
that'd be great.
Just like a technical
Just means
question.
Matt and I won't mispronounce words. That's all.
Mr. Weeks?
Good.
All right, so I guess it doesn't really require a vote. It sounds like the board is okay with this.
Thank you.
And then you also will be available by phone. I think you and I discussed. If
I
there
will have
is any
my
questions, we can
computer
phone a
there and-
friend.
Yes, absolutely.
So,
You're gonna have an earbud in?
so with that being said, we are all set on appointments, correct? We held off on Karen's appointment. One-day liquor licenses. Are
So
we-
moved.
Second,
Moved to approve, so we have a motion to approve, moved in second. Nothing is in the past, so all in favor? 4-0.
Business is booming at Camp Kawani.
So with that being said, vote recommendations on special town meeting, warrant articles. I will say this, just the way that the calendar fell, we weren't able to get FinCom's recommendations.
Oh,
And I know the board appreciates having those.
we do.
So with that being said, I want to poll the board to see if you guys want to meet in the very close future to make these recommendations, or if we feel that we want to hold off or make the recommendations on the floor.
I mean, want to meet again is maybe substitute the word want with, does the board see the need to meet?
The Finance Committee is meeting tomorrow evening.
I do feel that it's very important for us to see the FinCom recommendations and their rationale before we vote on them. I think it's the most respectful thing to do, that these guys do labor behind the scenes, and it's the one time of the year that we probably actually really do sit down and listen to them. I personally would prefer to make our recommendations once we see FinCom's recommendations.
Okay,
If
Ms.
I
Gibson.
may, yeah, we should, if you would like to wait until after tomorrow night to look at theirs, if we could schedule it for later this week, because I have to get the informational warrant to the printer, and those recommendations appear on the informational warrant. In fact, that's largely the purpose of having an informational warrant, is to see your recommendations and FinCom's
So
recommendations.
they're meeting tomorrow night,
Yes,
and you have to post the meeting
2
40,
days.
right, 48 hours.
48 hours.
So, and, not that I have much of a social life, but I mean, Friday night, I feel like, come
Yeah.
on.
Thursday.
Right, that's what I'm saying,
Thursday.
so can we maybe do it Thursday? I
Is the
don't know.
board okay with that? All right.
yeah.
Okay, so Thursday.
All right, so,
Yep.
newsflash, we will be meeting Thursday for the special town meeting to make our recommendations. And I think that kind of works well. Next item on the agenda is to execute October 4th, 2021 special town meeting warrant. Do we need to make our recommendations to execute it, Ms. Green? Or can we just execute it and then add our recommendations later?
It's probably best to wait
Okay.
for the recommendations and execute at the same time.
Okay, perfect.
May I just remind you of the issue, the
minute.
article that Mary Ann Damasio had emailed to all of us?
Yeah,
Yep.
it's
That
Thursday.
didn't make it into the warrant. I don't know when we talk about that, but
That's
For Springtown,
So
for,
it's the 16th.
well,
We've
she
got
she had
one.
asked for it specifically for
Okay,
this.
yeah,
If
so we
if
do
we
have to
for
want
fall.
to get back to her and tell her that it's gonna be
okay,
the
sorry.
spring, then just
Sorry,
let her know.
I thought you reached out
Yeah.
after our conversation, but I'll reach out to her, not a problem. Mr. Young?
When you say execute the town meeting warrant, that means you're going forward and post the town meeting warrant at this
Do they
time?
count Saturdays
Yep.
and Sundays?
8, 9,
On Thursday, I thought.
On Thursday, yeah.
After we meet on Thursday.
I just want to
So,
remind the
yeah.
board, and I'm sure you got a copy of that article.
We have
that
to
I
post it
sent
on the
to all of you.
16th. Yes.
You need to consider going back to town meeting and changing line 54 of Article 5 of the town meeting to read 12,646,000. If you don't do that, before it's September 20th, what you're going to end up with is that $305,000 that everybody knows is never going back to the school district in fiscal 2022, even though the people at town meeting were told that, and even the people, all of the people that went to the polls were told that that was going to happen. We've got to go back and change that, otherwise that $305,000 is going to end up in everybody's tax bill forever and a day. And it's just plain wrong what happened at town meeting. Everybody knows that the vote by the school committee in 414 took the school department totally out of the override question. Not only from the town meeting perspective, but from the ballot question perspective. So I urge you to please consider doing that when you meet before September 20th. That's all I have to say on the issue, because I've been trying to get through that to the Board of Selectmen and others since that occurred. And I just urge you to do that. That's all I have to say.
All right. And Mr. Young, I want to say I appreciate you bringing concerns to us, as sometimes we don't know it all. And it's also nice to have a member of our community that is knowledgeable.
I appreciate that.
But at this time, we've had several sets of eyes on your concerns with our past town administrator, our current town administrator, town council, the town accountant. We checked with Desi, who said, go back to town council. And at this time, I don't think we're doing anything wrong. At the town meeting, minute 110, we get into this discussion where you stood before town meeting and you explained the whole scenario. And Mr. Sullivan did say yes. If they do, what's that? Sorry.
Yes to what?
He said yes. If the school does not use this money, it will become a surplus. And if it's unused, it will become free cash next fiscal year. And just like anything else, just like any other department, if the department doesn't use their money, it doesn't go in our pockets. We don't ride off into the sunset. We're not going to see that $300,000. It just means that it's going to be reappropriated at town meeting before the public. Nothing in the dark has happened with this $300,000. And that's what has happened. I know that you reached out to the Attorney General, the Department of Revenue, the Department of Local Services, and the Inspector General, and that's what you said on the phone. That's what you said on the phone, Mr. Young.
I also said on the phone to you, Mr. Dyer, that none of those people would act because I was not a town official.
Right.
I also want to point out to you, if what Mr. Sullivan said at town meeting is absolutely true, okay, and the true intent, the absolutely true intent, can you hold your question for a little bit?
I am, absolutely.
If the absolutely true intent of the funding purpose in that ballot question, which everybody knows what it was, to raise an additional $1.85 million for the purpose of paying, this is what it said, okay? As did line 54 of Article 5 of the town meeting, and everybody knows this. The true intent of that particular ballot question was to increase the town's free cash in fiscal 2023. You have two violations there of the requirements for a ballot question. One being, you cannot have the intent of a ballot question as increasing the town's free cash. Go into the and you will read that, okay, unless you want to be in denial. And if you have a ballot question that is going to affect two fundings in two separate years, one, the $1,545,000 for general government departments, which was perfectly fine for 2002, and the other one, to increase the town's free cash account in fiscal 2023, that ballot question would have had to have been worded that way, and if it was, it would have been thrown out, because you have to have two separate questions in the town, for the town meeting ballot question, one for fiscal 2022 and one for 2023. So the whole process, regardless of what you say, did not meet the requirements of a ballot question in three separate ways, okay?
So, well, let me just stop you right there, because we're short on time tonight, and we're fortunate to have town council here.
We're very fortunate to have her, who gave that ridiculous.
Mr. Young, no, Mr. Young,
I'm telling you right now.
please do not disrespect our town council.
If she's gonna tell you, just let me get this in. If she's gonna tell you that everything was perfectly fine, because the $1.85 million that was appropriated at town meeting under Article 5, okay, as long as it matched the ballot question that appeared, that money matched the ballot question that appeared in the ballot question, the $1.85 million, she's completely neglecting what I just told you about the requirements of the ballot question. She has never addressed that, okay? She's never addressed that, never.
I need to respond.
Ms. Green.
Oh, please let me respond. Mr. Young, if you watch and review the town meeting, you will see, let me finish, please.
Go ahead.
You will see, if you fast forward to 1.09, town moderator, Mr. Keeley, calls out all of the article numbers. Number 54 was hold. You came to the podium. Excuse me, let me finish, please.
Mr. Young.
You came to the
Mr. Young.
podium. You explained in front of all of town meeting about this. It's actually $304,088. $885. Okay, you explained about that. You talked about it in the articles. And all of town meeting was present. You asked the question to Kevin Sullivan. He answered the question about the $300,000, and what happens when it doesn't get expended, it will go into free cash. Okay, excuse me, let me finish. You made a motion to decrease the assessment to $12,646,118. You made a motion, it was seconded. And what happened after that?
It was defeated.
Exactly. That means it's over.
What does that
It was defeated at town meeting.
What does that prove?
It proves that town meeting voted to adopt this after you explained it. That means town meeting has spoken. The residents have spoken. You explained it already to them
Mr.
right
Young,
during that.
Mr. Young.
Going back to the schools.
That's
Mr.
all you
Young.
need to say. That's all
Mr.
you
Young.
need to say.
You want me to stand up and lecture?
It was defeated at town meeting.
All right. So with that being said, this matter is closed. We have spent enough time, we have spent enough money on this topic, and it's closed, it's over. The town had voted on it. Mr. Young, that's okay. That's okay. You can recall, Mr. Young,
Why
if,
don't you let some of the other selectmen talk about it? But I'd like to hear their opinion on it.
I don't want.
so, Mr. Young,
At the risk of, I did want to.
Seriously.
thank you. I'm running the meeting.
Of course you are.
So, Ms. Kemet.
And I really don't want to belabor, and I would ask, Mr. Young, I realize that you feel extremely emotional about this, but.
Mr. Young.
I understand, but I would ask that you try to maintain some decorum while we're in the meeting. So I will say that I did not recognize at that town meeting what had happened leading up to town meeting that caused that $305,000 difference. I understand what Mr. Young is saying. I think you brought up a very compelling argument, which I hadn't thought about, which is, in fact, it was brought up at town meeting. It was brought up before the public body, and the public body let their voice be known. I think Mr. Young's counter argument is that perhaps not everything was disclosed at that meeting. When I can only speak for myself, but when I became aware after town meeting that there was that discrepancy, we definitely reached out to town council. We did not take these allegations and accusations with a grain of salt. We really, because they were coming from you, we know that they're well thought out. We know that you do your research. We asked Kate, and I believe Jay even chimed in on some of it, but I think it was primarily you. And Kate said, look, this was a matter of the timing. It wasn't that anybody was trying to pull some kind of shenanigans here. It was a matter of when the vote came down and when the ballot and the warrant had to be printed. It was the timing is so tightly orchestrated that if one thing, jumps the track, then you end up in the situation that we ended up in, which is where the 305,000, we're rounding up for just, ease of math, where that 305,000 that originally we thought in all good conscience was going to be earmarked for the schools was part of all of that thing. But it was not our intention, as you've said tonight, to put it into free cash. That wasn't why we had that money there. We know that that's not permissible.
Question, Laura, before you go any further?
Through me, Mr.
Chairman, what did the ballot question say? Can you tell me what the ballot question?
Well, yes.
Sure.
Yeah.
We're not talking about the ballot question.
Mr. Young,
With that.
that town meeting article said to fund various town departments and the schools.
Correct.
So, if the schools happen to come across a bill, which we don't know, there could have a leak in the roof, we don't know. And we'll see at the end of the fiscal year, and if there's any unexpended funds, it goes into free cash, it's all above board. This, Mr. Weeks, do you have any comments before I close this?
I mean, I think everybody kind of knows my comments on this. I mean, I was a constituent at the time, and I had some issues with this, and I brought it up to a couple different people, but it's all said and done at this point. And, I mean, I just go back to the ballot question. If that's the case, verify it, because if that negates anything, that negates it. That's all the proof you need, because $305,000 as a constituent at that point, I would remember watching all of these FinCom channels, videos and meetings. And I remember thinking the exact same thing. Where did this happen? What's going on with this? And I talked to Mr. Young as early as today as I was walking in here, and it doesn't change the way that I would have voted. I would have voted that way for sure. Still would have approved it. Still would have went through with it. But I definitely think that there are some missteps there, and they need to be corrected moving forward. And I'm looking at it as a constituent. Right now, I'm on the other side of the desk, but at the time, I thought it was a little wacky, the whole process in and of itself. I understand the timing, and the reason, again, why I would have voted for it was because we were trying to save jobs, quite frankly. And we were trying to fund schools. So, and I think everybody across the board would agree that that's why people did what they did. But I definitely, as a concerned citizen, brought up the exact same issues. So, and everybody knows that Mr. Young and I are on two separate ends of the political spectrum right here. So this is like one of those things where unicorns are running across the street at this point. But I do agree with him. I agree with this issue, and I agree that it's a big problem, and it's I think that it's something that we have to watch for.
I really wasn't done, but
I'm sorry, Ms. Kennedy.
It's okay. But so moving forward, I would hope that the whole board would be included in strategizing on how we would handle this matter. That was not the case with this town meeting. We all should have been made aware that there was a $305,000 difference, and we all should have been part of a conversation about how that was going to be handled going forward. And this is what happens when you have well-intentioned people making decisions, but not including all five of us. And I'm just looking at you because you just recognized me, and so I would hope that we learn from this, and that we make sure that when there are things like this, see, they can take on these insidious natures and look so shady, when in fact it's a series of innocent missteps, and people may be thinking they're doing what's in the best interest of the town, but if you're not being inclusive with all of the decision makers, then you've missed something along the way in the process. So I really would just hope that we learn from this going forward, and that we're being inclusive and making sure that this 5-person CEO, this, again, Mr. Weeks keeps reminding me that we're 20%, each of us is 20% of a CEO, that all CEOs are part of a conversation about there was a misstep, this is how we're going to handle it, this is how we're going to present it at town meeting, this is how we'll, that really should have been an inclusive conversation, and it wasn't. That's all I've got to say about it.
All right, so nope, I'm gonna close this conversation, Mr. Young. It's 8:30. No, Mr. Young, I am closing this conversation. Nope, I'm done. I'm done, Mr. Young. So with that being said, is it the consent of the board to move on from this topic?
I don't have anything else.
Okay.
Okay, so we're moving on. Thank you. So with that being said, to discuss draft debit card policy for town administrator, police, fire, and the highway department. It is in your packet. Ms. Green, do you want to take this?
Yes, so this was a policy, it was drafted by our treasurer collector. She did her research and put this together for us, whereas the board in an earlier meeting voted to allow for our fire and police and highway department and town administrator to have debit cards to make emergency type purchases. So before we went forward with the debit card issuance, the treasurer collector and our town accountant would like to see a policy put in place. This is a very good policy. It addresses many different types of scenarios and the processes that our treasurer collector and town accountant expect to see as far as his purchases and then keeping track with receipts and things like that, so that none of the use of the debit cards is used for any type of purchases that are not necessary for town needs.
Make a motion to approve the policy.
Do I have a second?
Second.
So I just have, go ahead, Ms. Kemmett.
I don't see as part of the policy a limit on expenditures, which I know we had discussed putting a cap, and in the absence of a cap, it sort of seems like a free-for-all, which I feel extremely uncomfortable with.
I can certainly change it. We did, the board did approve a $5,000 maximum limit on these debit cards.
Does it have to be written in the policy, or you just cap the card? Because I remember it being 5,000.
It's
You
just
cap
going to
the
be a
card,
cap
right?
on the
Yeah,
card,
okay.
yes.
But may I suggest, I would like it hard-coded into this policy.
Okay.
We have a way of getting amnesia after we
true.
vote things, and then people will say, well, I didn't see that written in the policy. I didn't read the minutes from the, so I just out of an abundance of caution.
Chief Mix.
Doesn't that money come out of each department head's budget?
It's an interesting question.
So you effectively have a limit, because right now, I'm gonna tell you, within the next 30 days, GoDaddy's gonna hit me for $500 on my personal credit card.
Right, that's why we're doing this, so,
I understand
yeah,
that,
yeah.
but then I'm gonna put a reimbursement in that goes through the town administrator, the town accountant, and a warrant that you guys sign. You already got 3 checks. I don't see a reason that you need to put a dollar figure on it. The cards themselves, yeah, they should have a max on them, so if they get stolen
Right.
or lost, our exposure is minimal. But as far as the department head, you already, I mean, you guys are crazy enough to do this.
I do not feel comfortable without having a cap on this. I'm a hesitant adopter, as it is, and I just don't feel comfortable. I think, if it turns out that it's no problem, we can always revise the procedure and remove the dollar amount, but I respect what you're saying, Chief, but I just, I think that it has the potential of something going awry, and I would just like to make sure that we've got as many checks and balances as possible to prevent that.
Sure, so we can add the language, basically just that the amount of the debit cards is going to be capped at $5,000.
I'm totally fine with that, which
Okay.
effectively is what you're saying, like, it's the same thing. Like, you're capped at whatever your debit card cap is, so,
Can I
yeah.
have a motion with the amended language?
So moved.
Second.
All right, got a motion, a second. All those in favor? Perfect, 3-0. All right, looks like we got through all of the old business, approving of meeting minutes.
Joe, you
We're
may
not gonna,
want
we're not gonna have a quorum
Yeah,
to approve
may
those,
wanna
because some
table
of them are
them.
from.
We got 2 of them
Yeah.
that are 21. The 3 of us can do at least 2 of them, and then we have to wait for
Yep.
Matt to come in?
Yep.
Yeah,
Okay.
So moved.
second.
For
Alright.
8/10/21, 7/27/21.
Perfect. We got a motion and a second. All those in favor of approving the minutes? All right. 3-0. We'll have to, we'll just hold off on the 10/13/20 until Chairman Dyer gets back.
Yep.
All right, I guess that's it, actually. We have to go into executive session at this
Town
point.
administrator report.
Oh, that's right, I'm sorry, town administrator report. That's right, it's right in front of my face.
So it'll be quick.
Ms. Green?
So just a couple of updates. So I have an update from our deregionalization study. They had originally anticipated that we would have the study by end of August, beginning of September. So I did reach out to them, and due to the amount of data that they've received, they're still going through the data. So they hope to have a study report to us by mid-October. So I did want to update the board on that. And
Lisa, is it all right if I interject?
Absolutely.
Although I know we won't have a quorum because I would have to abstain, but I can get Kenny and Matt
I don't think it was.
at some other time. With the deregionalization committee,
You don't have to abstain from that.
okay, well then maybe I can vote.
Yeah, do it.
What I'd like the board to do
It's in here.
is,
It
once they come in with their report, I would like my committee to have the report for probably a month, which put us somewhere in the vicinity of the middle of November, just before the holidays. The firm themselves are gonna come in and talk about what they found, but they're not gonna make a recommendation either way. What my committee will do is make a recommendation. So I would like to have those reports for a month and then present to the board
Yeah.
after.
You guys need time to digest it, so you can present
Yeah.
what your recommendation is.
Right.
Yeah.
sense.
So
Okay.
moved.
I defer back to Chairman Dyer, but.
No, feel free to finish
okay.
this.
Okay.
and,
Yeah.
Then I would say, can we pick a month, whatever selectman meeting we have in the month, can you just give 30 days out?
Yeah,
Yeah, so put it on
What are
the
you
agenda,
thinking,
the
like
selectman agenda for them.
November-ish?
yeah, if they're gonna come in, basically, because I want the citizens of the town to have a good, 4 or 5 months to think this over, because it will be on the Maytown meeting and most likely, a ballot question.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, can we, just 30 days out from that, can we just stick it on the agenda, just make note of that, please?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks.
all right, secondly, just want to give a quick update. The cell tower is under construction. So we did receive a call from Ernie Saglin, who's the facilities director for the Whitman-Hanson Regional School District, and the construction for the cell tower has commenced behind the middle school. So hopefully soon we'll have much better cell receptionists in the town. And just want to update that, so special town meeting, October 4th at 7:30. Location has been changed to the Performing Arts Center to the gymnasium. They're going to set up the chairs, up to 200 chairs, and get all that taken care of. So I just wanted to get that out there, that they did change the site to the gymnasium at the high school. And that's all I have to report for today.
Great. Thank you very much. So we took care of minutes, I'm assuming?
Just the one,
10/13/20 left, because we didn't have a quorum.
Oh, we
Yeah.
don't have a quorum.
It's only you three.
So moved.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Moved and seconded, all in favor?
Abstention.
301. Great, thank you. All right, so with that being said, I'm looking for a motion to adjourn to attend wage and personnel, and then to enter executive session to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining of litigation if an open session may have a detrimental effect on bargaining or litigation position of the public body. And
Yeah,
I'm
I
sorry
think we're
to
doing
interject.
two things.
We need to
Sorry.
go into
Wage and
personnel.
personnel.
Wage and
Okay,
personnel.
okay, sorry. So, just motion to adjourn to,
So moved.
second.
moved and seconded, all in favor? 4-0.
Right. And then I am going to open up,
No recess.
want to recess? We can do a 5-minute recess. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, take a 5-minute recess. 13th, just because we have a lot of stuff to still go over in executive session, I believe. So
That's
we,
probably mine. I was like,
I want to try and get through as much of this as possible. If it's okay, I'd like to go out of order and approve the minutes first, simply because, Matt, if you do have to step out, I want to make sure we have a quorum, because a lot of these are actually
yeah.
yours, over you. when you were here.
Yep,
So
I'm here.
I can't
I'm
do
here.
it. So,
You're in it to win it now?
so 1/14/20, 5/26/20, 1/12/21, 3/23/21, those are all ones that I can't vote in, so I
So
want to get you
moved.
while you're here.
Second.
Yeah, okay. Got a motion, a second? All those in favor? All right, 3, and then I'm going to abstain. And then accept a motion for 6/15/21 and 8/31/21.
So moved.
Second.
Motion a second, all right, all those in favor? 4-0. All right, thank you very much. I just want to make sure we get that out of the way. All right, new business, discuss increased staffing in Selectmen's office. Ms. Green, you want to talk about this?
You know, I apologize, I didn't fully prepare for that conversation, but I can say that in the Selectmen office, it's very, very difficult for two of us to run the operation on a day-to-day basis. Only because the amount of phone calls. And it seems that the phone system, the phone automatically comes into the Selectmen's office. So we get every single phone call no matter what. So we have to field the call and then on it goes to other departments.
That's interesting, because historically, they used to all go to,
Yeah, no, every phone call
Yeah.
comes to the town administrator.
so somebody must have changed it.
So, you know, if
It's a
Greer
short
and I
straw.
Yeah.
don't pick up the phone, we'll notice the same number will call back again and again and again. So, we have that, we have all the clerical that needs to go, the filing that needs to happen, and just putting the agendas together and then just keeping the operation running. I mean, we have every single department coming at us with documents that need to be signed, lease agreements, grant contracts, union issues, personnel issues, hiring issues, procurement, and everything and anything. It's just the two of us. And we have people that come in, and of course, when selectmen come in, you are my focus at that moment, and I will, always take your calls and respond to you immediately. And then things come up that require attention right away, which takes away from a lot of other things. Work like procurement, especially when we have to do a full procurement, there is a lot of work involved with that, where we have to develop and draft the actual, the bid or the request for proposals. Then you need to follow all the regulations as far as your advertising and then bid opening and drafting the contracts and things like that. So one person cannot get through all of that, especially with procurement under 30B. You have to have every I dotted, you have to have every T crossed. If not, you could face a protest later on from a company that didn't get the job, and that requires additional work.
We've been through that.
I've been through it many
And
times.
I've drafted, when I was a Whitman, I did procurement, and fortunately, I recognized that. We did have every I dotted, every T crossed, and when we did have a protest, they came in, they met with us, realized that everything was in order, and said, okay, thank you very much, please consider us next time. And they left. And then, again, it's not just one department, it's every department that comes through. It's just things that we can't get to because there's amount of reading, concentration, and not just procurement, but human resource issues. And again, people have contracts and things they want us to read. And, hello, hi, yeah, selectman, oh, you're looking for town clerk? Okay, hold on, here we go. So an additional clerical person that will take on those small duties will free up Greer and myself to really focus on what we need to do to keep the operations of the town going. So, I mean, I know budget-wise, we're stretching a little bit, but I just want to bring this to the attention of the board that eventually we are going to need, somebody to come in at least and answer the phone, direct people, and then do the filing, update with the personnel file, and every time I touch a personnel file, I've been changing it to the new system, and so if we have somebody that can do that regularly, we must have 6 gray filing cabinets that just have unbeknownst documents that we can't even get through, which we could really utilize that space for something else.
Yeah.
So it's just, it's really a need, it's not a want, but it's a need so that we can really keep things going, because I fear that I'm gonna miss something that has a deadline, and the town's gonna be penalized or hurt by it, and I don't want that to happen.
Well, I think, one of the things that we had talked about last time was that, obviously, we're getting more housing in town, obviously, right? It means more people, it means more needs. what we were able to get away with years ago may not be where we're at right now. As population grows, staffing needs rise, right? So one of the things I think we talked about last time, in addition to that, was talking about maybe putting together some type of a proposal for a assistant town administrator to start talking about that process. Because one of the things that we do have coming up, obviously, in May is the town meeting where we can start making some of these moves. I'd like to start having the conversation now, if we can, so we can have plenty of conversations around it and really game plan months in advance to see if we can make this work. So I'm wondering if it pleases the board, could we maybe task you with being able to put together somewhat of a job description and maybe a realistic needs assessment about what we could do with that person and how we can make it work?
Can I just say one thing?
Yes.
I can do all those things and get paid what I'm getting paid. I was an assistant for 14 years in Dover.
Mhm.
I drafted the warrant. I know how to do all the operating budgets. I've done, the capital needs stuff, I've done it all, except the finance. I'm not good with the finance, but I could put together operating budgets. And essentially, the last 2 years that I was there, my boss said it was great. I put my feet up on my desk, let you do the work, and I took the credit. I
That's
mean, I
fantastic.
can do it, and I can do it for $35,000 less a year than I did it in Dover. So, I'm just saying, I don't think you need an ATA. I'm certified in public purchasing. I did all the procurements. I actually did all the HR. I did all the hiring except for police, fire, and library. I mean, I did everything. But I'm more of a behind-the-scenes person. My boss was the spokesperson.
Excuse me, Lisa, I'm getting a message from people up in planning. Had 3 people reach out to me.
Oh,
Could
they
you
want me to come up?
possibly pop up there?
I will be right back.
Okay.
So I mean, that's just something to take into consideration. It might be a bridge, because if you get an ATA, I think Lisa said in Whitman, they're gonna pay like, how much?
So that was, excuse me, may I?
Yeah, absolutely.
So
I think, Matt,
my
you
question was, I sort of thought it would be helpful for me if you guys could parse through all of those various responsibilities and come up with the thing, like when Lisa was talking about procurement, it occurred to me, well, could we find a person who could do procurement and grants like that? Because those are very compatible, and we need to get more grant money.
Well, I could do the procurement, take that off her plate, and she could do grants and train the new town planner.
I know when I had talked to Lisa about this a while ago, just saying, geez, what are you running into? How big of a bread box is this? She had said, boy, the procurement alone, Laura, is really what kills me. Like the rest of the stuff I can kind of get through, but the procurement is huge. So I think it might be good to take a look at what are all of the various tasks that are getting done. What can we, like, for instance, it seems like the phone, like answering the phone, that is not, you guys are not at the level at which I want you guys to be answering the phone for the entire town hall. You're not a phone operator. That's not what we hired either of you to do.
And Whitman, they have a 3-person staff. They have to. In Dover, we had 6,000 residents. I worked like 60 hours a week, even though we had a really solid admin.
Yeah.
Mary Marini worked at least 50 to 60 hours every week. And I'm not gonna do that for, my salary, but certainly if we had someone to take care of the more ministerial day-to-day tasks.
Right. I'm just looking at the clock, and we still have an executive session to get into. Mr. Dyer?
Yeah, no, that's pretty much what I was going to say, is maybe let's reevaluate what we can do for less. Like I think having the minutes clerk, Amanda, she's phenomenal, she gets the job done, and it takes one thing off our plate for very little. So if that's something that, Lisa and Greer can talk about and see what we can do for less and different strategies, I think that'd be great. And I kind of like the idea of procurement and grant, but at the same time too, there might be a lot of other very minuscule things where we can use the brain power that we already have up in my office.
Yeah, is it a matter of hiring a secretary or an admin?
It is.
And then having Greer do some of these, so it just may be a repositioning, but also, this seems like a very simple thing. But I don't think when I call town hall, that we have the same thing that most town halls, which is press 1 for the town clerk, press 2 for the selectmen.
There is, but people don't wanna listen, so they hit 0, I think, and they go right to
Right to
our
town,
phone.
right to the
They
select.
don't
Okay.
wanna take
Yeah,
the
there
time
is.
to do, or they don't know if it's gonna be somebody's name,
Mm-hmm.
and they're like, I don't even know what department I need.
I guess, what I'm trying to say is, do we make it easy for people to call the right person without just calling the main number? Like, should we take a look at our website? Should we take a look at, our phone directory and some of those tools and make sure that we're helping ourselves?
Yeah, we could do that, but I'm pretty sure we have a menu.
Okay.
And it's not just answering phones, that's like such a, that's just.
I know, it's
Right.
just an example.
Naturally.
yeah.
Chief Mix?
Is the new phone system for town hall on the warrant?
It is. What will that provide?
You just get a better phone tree, instead of 0, you change it to 6.
No. You're right. Right.
That is
Yeah.
what most town
Right.
halls do, yeah.
Board of Health.
Yep.
And the selectmen, make that the first 3 choices.
No, I think it's great because you made it sound so simple. I'm glad that it is. I'm glad that it is. Yeah. I know, I promise I'm trying to get through this. So I think, what we want to do is, I think if the board's okay with it, really what I'm looking for is just, if it's through us or through the selectmen, to get a needs assessment going based on what they actually need, and we'll just go from there. Just start the conversation now.
I can list
Yeah.
every single need.
Yeah, no, that's fine,
Believe
that's
me,
fine.
So,
I've been there, done that, so.
just to add to the conversation, because Joe, you said it at the beginning, we did have talks about, I'm gonna say the word wrong,
Assistant.
plan.
Yeah.
Deputy chief, police.
Succession.
Succession plan,
fire.
yeah.
Succession.
But
That's what I was thinking too.
is it as simple as, and I'm gonna use this phrase, I don't know if it's right,
Uh-oh.
mother's hours?
Mm-hmm.
Where,
Banker's hours, Jim.
Yeah, you use banker's hours.
banker's hours.
Banker's hours.
Better.
Yeah,
Okay, where somebody is in the office from, say, 10 to 2:30.
mm-hmm,
So that it's 4.5 hours a day, whatever, 22 hours a week.
Yep.
Where they would handle the brunt of whatever. And if grant writing is part of that, that would be awesome.
Right.
But obviously, money is tight, we can't afford 105,000, for assistant TA.
right. Well, I think, just one more thing, and then I think we just have to move on based off the fact that we don't have a meeting for September 14th scheduled yet. I would just say, because Lisa's not here, I think, if we can get together with her, try to do that assessment, and then we'll just keep the conversation ongoing. It's not like we're trying to make it for the October 4th. We still have months to go.
Oh, yeah.
And we can just, start simple.
But it does seem like we've got sort of agreement that we recognize you guys have got a lot on your plate, and we need to do something to give you resources.
I will say, and Lisa is recognizing it now, and John said it.
Yes,
It's like
I
every
remember
day
that.
is a sprint. We get in there and we go. And like a lot of days, I don't take lunch, I don't take breaks, and then you start making mistakes.
Right.
And
But we've
and-
discussed that, Greer,
Right.
haven't
I
we?
know we have.
And we'll
but
get there.
It's like, oh, if I have an extra hour, I can get an hour more work done. It's 4 more hours a week,
Right.
so.
You get an
We'll give,
hour.
Mr. Dyer, he'll give you the last words and shake your hand up.
We're gonna take that away.
I was just gonna say, with this needs assessment too, let's think about automation as
Yeah.
well. You know what I
Yes.
mean?
Right.
Because there was like a lot of things, there was something that was, let's just say appointments to a committee. If you're interested in applying to a committee, one thing that Greer has to do is write back, thanks, I got your email. If there's a way that we can also incorporate technology into the solution where it's appointment or committees at
It could be a
Hanson.gov.
separate
and-
Gmail account.
Yes.
Right, it could be a separate account and it's automated where it
Yes.
says, hey, thanks, we received it. But Gray is still gonna have access to it, but that's just one less thing that we can do. So it needs assessment that covers automation. Can we break these jobs into individual tasks? Cause right now, not moonlighting, but, independent workers, that's a big thing, like the minutes clerk is great, a great example, just minutes, that's all she does, if it's whatever it
I
may be.
have a volunteer
So
4
we-
days a week, thank God. She's already way past her 100 hours for, her senior tax work-off. She gets a kick out of it, because she comes in and it's just like she goes.
That's
So
great.
I've got a staff like this every
Okay.
week for her.
So-
She loves it.
I think you got carte blanche to be as creative as you need to be to try and get the job done, and we can come back to that, at the next meeting. So maybe we can put on for the next agenda, just whatever we were able to come up with. Okay. Moving on to, unless anyone has any last minute things? Okay. Veterans agent request for increased pay and/or hours. Hello. You can come step to the podium. Ms. Greer, do you have anything to kind of intro us under this?
Oh,
I think there was a little letter in our packet.
yeah, there is a
Yep.
letter in the packet, and I think it's pretty self-explanatory. But I know Lisa had a conversation with Tim, and I think he can tell you that the other town he works in, is that Rockland, Tim?
Yes.
Wants Tim full-time.
Okay.
And right now, Tim works for us Monday and Tuesday. How many hours do you work a week?
16 hours?
So I'm paid, I believe, on the basis of 19 hours, because I was always doing extra per week outside of the Monday and Tuesday. And I had private job, I had all these part-time jobs. I picked up Rockland VSO because my friend in Rockland moved to Braintree, he was taking care of Braintree and so forth. And then, they sold me on that, you can take care of Rockland in 3 days. And I'm here to tell you that, no, you can't. So, as an example, between the two towns, I have 40 veterans and widows on Chapter 115. And 32 of them, no, 34 of them are in Rockland. I have 6 in Hanson. So, I'm about to move to I'll pick up a 7th here in the next couple of weeks. So anyway, what I'm not doing in Rockland, I'm not doing outreach and stuff like that. And COVID has kind of changed the rules of the game here for the past year and a half. And my routines that I was doing in Hanson have all changed as well. So I'm still maintaining my professional association, so I'm in the Massachusetts Veteran Service Officer Association, I'm in the Southeastern Massachusetts Veteran Service Officer Association, member of VFW out of Halifax, senior vice commander at the Hanover American Legion, and I'm very involved with those organizations. I'm also a member of the Chief Petty Officers Association with the Coast Guard. So, I was at a meeting the other night with the VFW in Halifax. Wednesday, I have my SMVSOA regional meeting, which is now going to be on Rockland time. In the past, I worked a private security job. So anyway, it's kind of morphed. Rockland's very busy, and originally they looked at it, I think, from their end that I was covering 3 days and they were going to save budget money because they still budgeted for the position full time. But with me only working 24 hours in Rockland, they were going to save, about $20,000, and during COVID, you didn't know what you were going to receive from the state and so forth. So they looked at it like, oh, okay, we got a little, window here. But I'm very busy, so much so that the Rockland hours are morphing into Hanson. Like people from Rockland will come to Hanson Town Hall for assistance. And I have some people from Hanson now because outside of Monday and Tuesday, they'll go to Rockland, and I'm at the senior center in Rockland. So I do help out some Hanson folks that travel to Rockland as well. So there is some exchange. Originally, when this all started too, we were entertaining the thought of districting the two towns. And at the time, Whitman changed, Hanover changed, like all the surrounding communities were going through a change of VSOs. And I didn't jump on any one opportunity, but Rockland was like the third one in about a 2-week period that came to me and said, and actually the guy that I knew there, a friend of mine, who was going to Braintree, said I could do it and thought it would work out and I could get rid of, my security job. And I said, oh, okay, it fits. So anyway, to sum it all up, Rockland pays me $31.62 per hour. Hanson pays me $22.80 per hour. In Rockland, and they didn't want to, they know I'm from Hanson and so forth, and they didn't really want to steal me from Hanson. But I went to them looking for an assistant, an assistant VSO, not an administrative person, but somebody who could train and understand, the database that we use, meet the veterans, talk about Chapter 115, et cetera. So that's still on the table from Rockland because they budgeted for a full-time position. So really, they could fill the days on their end when I'm not there. Or the other option is bring me on full-time and then, but then I would leave Hanson. So I didn't really want to leave Hanson. I live 1 minute away. I'm only about 7 minutes away from Rockland, so I've been here for 4 years, coming up at, Christmas time. I know the community. The one thing that we are lacking right now is outreach. That could improve. And I didn't do an assessment of all the towns. I didn't feel I had to because I'm actively making what I'm making in Rockland. So to me, it's a no-brainer to, be paid at the Rockland rate and work full-time there. It's, a 5-minute difference on a commute or anything like that. I know the community over there. Folks at Town Hall are great there as well. But I thought kind of the best of both worlds would be if I stay in Hanson, stay in Rockland, I think the better avenue is to get an assistant in Rockland to cover the gap in hours there. And then, there's flexibility if I downgraded my hours or something, that assistant could move up, you've got some exchange there and, you're not in an emergency, trying to fill something. But the gap in pay is dramatic. The gap in pay to Hanover is dramatic. The gap in pay to Whitman is dramatic. Whitman, they put it in the Whitman-Hanson Express, and they were hiring at like $37.60 or something like that. So I'm, but the difference is I'm part-time here, so I guess if you were gonna look at apples to apples and you looked at what's part-time and Pembroke paying or something like that, maybe there's some similarities. I don't know. I wasn't looking at all that. So in my opinion, I'm making $31.62 in Rockland, and that's what I would like to at least get it somewhat closer.
I believe that Lisa maybe did some calculations. Do you want me to go?
Yeah, we
see
could-
if
I think
can-
we need those calculations
we're gonna
very
need them.
much. We're sort of flying blind.
Because
like-
we could, whatever data we could go off would be fantastic. I can say that when I saw you apply 4 years ago and get the job, I was very excited because I worked with your predecessor at Rockland on the finance committee for years prior. And you've not only filled his shoes very nicely, but you've actually been able to do and keep up with his reputation, which has been fantastic. So, you've done an amazing job, not only in this town, but in Rockland as well, because I still keep, pretty close tabs with some of those folks over there. So, regardless of where the conversation goes, I want to say thank you for everything that you've done, because you've done amazing work. You just have.
Well, and we have to put our money where our mouth is. If we prioritize our veterans, then we want to have somebody who's got their, who has got their best interest at heart. And anybody that's dealt with Tim knows that that's the case. So, I mean, I would like to see the data from Lisa, but if Todd says it's okay, which I can't imagine he would say it isn't, I would really like to see us bring his pay up to what he's making at Rockland.
I don't know what data is, if she's talking about.
I'm not sure either.
Operational pay, the difference and so forth. I did, just to mention, I did you know, instead of being calculated at 19 hours, calculate me at 16 hours.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Because I'm
that's
I'm doing
simple,
those
yeah.
extra things in Rockland as well, and it kind of, both towns are sharing in that.
Yeah, and, you know, for you, I mean, I can just as easily just do the math right now and call it a day.
You're working 19 hours, you said, Tim?
Yep.
Correct.
But we can reduce it to 16.
Right.
Maybe put another wage and personnel on Thursday after Selectmen. She's still up there and they're still debating.
Oh,
Really?
Yeah.
I'm just gonna do a quick calculation really fast, just to see real.
Yeah. So, subtract that. Tim, hang on one second.
Certainly.
From that. Okay.
And then divide that by 52, divide that by 19, is it?
Yeah.
So,
Oh,
It's a
that's
difference of
gross.
$70.
I believe that Lisa had a conversation with
It's not even that
Todd,
much.
so, yeah.
That's what it was, right?
What?
I'm pretty sure that she felt confident that, now you're saying you worked 19 hours, she did 16 hours at 29 hours.
In my email to Lisa, I told her you could move it down to 16 hours.
I believe that she concluded that there was money in the budget to pay $29 an hour.
I want to pay him the same that he's getting in Rockland.
Yeah.
If we want to keep this guy, and I'm sorry to talk like you're not here, Tim, but if we want to keep this guy, we got to just put our money where our mouth is. And I mean, we already, it's semi-pitiful that we've got a part-time veterans officer. I'm sure we fill the requirement that we're, under the law that we're required to have. But, he is the lifeline to our veterans for social services and everything else. And I just we're gonna get into pettiness between $21 and $31.62. That sounds ridiculous to me.
Unless I did the math wrong, it's a $2,000 difference if you reduce the hours and increase it by $9 an hour. Is that wrong?
No, I think you're right.
I think I am right, because I mean, I'm assuming you get paid bi-weekly, right? So,
No, every week.
every week?
Right.
All right, so it's probably not gonna be that far off anyways.
Right.
Because instead of 26, it's multiplied by 52.
Right.
So, I mean, I think it's only a $2,000 difference, and I can tell you right now, based off the fact that I know how much you do, I mean, I have a problem with it. But I don't wanna sound, I don't wanna sound biased on it, so, questions, comments, anything?
I have one thing to add.
Yep.
Because I think I'm listed under the bylaws, and there's a limitation there that
There is.
it's $7 to $25, or $7,000 to $25,000.
$7,000 to
To
$25,000.
Okay.
And I think that's how Lisa came up with $29, because she calculated that at 24,221, so it would be within.
Right, it gets
the range.
under that bylaw.
Well, can't we change the limit? We can reopen the warrant and
That's what I
change
was
the
thinking.
limit.
Yeah,
so, but I think realistically, I think we need to hear from
from
Ms. Green.
Okay, yeah, because.
Because I want to see what she's cooking.
She did have a conversation with Todd, and from doing it, and, Tim, I feel bad doing this in front of you, but it's just, it's reality.
We're all public employees, it's gonna
Right.
be listed in the annual
If-
report.
And what do you make, 22 and change?
22, I think
536.
80 or so.
Yep.
Okay, so if we go up $7, it gets Tim closer to the Rockland number. We're not exactly at the Rockland number, but it would put Tim under the 25,000 and keep us in budget. And that's what Lisa talked to Todd about. Because
Okay.
it's all about the budget.
Now, I get that, but I mean, we can't find $2,000 somewhere else. You basically, these guys are gonna court him, and,
4,000.
even though Tim's sort of trying to be like a good stand-up guy and stay with Hanson, at some point, you're gonna go like, all right, these guys are nickel-diming me, and I've got Rockland who's willing to make me full-time, pay me benefits, and pay me $31.62. I mean, Tim's a great guy, but I hate to talk like you're not here, Tim, but,
The commute, the gas money alone.
It's huge.
I'll tell you the difference. Rockland pays me an opt-out on medical insurance, it's $2,500 a year. In addition, I'm retired military, so I don't take the medical insurance. That's a nice little
It is.
bonus.
You also know that one of your children would be very disappointed if you didn't have any association with her favorite coach anymore, right?
So,
Was that a low blow? I agree with you guys.
so can we just
no, I
find,
understand.
can we find out from Lisa if we can, well, I know we can reopen the warrant and
Yes.
increase that line item.
Yes.
And it seems like regardless of whether we do it for Tim or not, it's gonna have to be done eventually, cause we're clearly, once again, not paying what surrounding towns are.
Yeah.
Surprise, surprise. But then could we get her to run the number at the 3162?
And
So-
so, and do we wanna, put the wage and personnel board on first?
I think, yeah, because I'm thinking we have to, right?
Yeah.
Run all that info, and
Yeah.
then, if that's the case, you can reopen the warrant
So-
if you so choose.
I just as a point of order for myself, isn't there a limit, we can only open the warrant it has to be over 2 weeks, right? Like, we can't,
Well, it has to be
20th?
posted 15 days.
Yeah, you have to post it,
Does
there's
that-
actually, the opening and closing the warrant is just really local tradition.
okay,
So the critical key is to execute the warrant and post it with sufficient time, and it's,
And that's not 15 business days, right? It's
No.
just 15 calendar days?
calendar days.
Yeah.
And actually, now that I say it, I think it's actually 14.
For some reason, I read.
right, so by the 20th, but just for the record, I mean, the 20th would be 12
Yeah.
days out. So I just want to make sure that whatever we do, we just do it,
Chapter 39.
right, what's that?
Is it on wage
We're
and
talking
personnel
about this
Saturday?
Thursday, though.
It is.
But you
We're
have
talking
to,
about this Thursday, though.
no, I know that, so I'm saying, we just want to make
okay.
sure that we get it
We
done.
have plenty of time, because Mr. Young and I had this long conversation of when the last day to open
7
up
to
the
20.
warrant.
That's what I'm at, when's the last day? I don't
It would
know.
be like next Monday.
It's
the
not
20th.
broken down hours.
Yeah, okay, I just want to make sure, just, I honestly don't know. What?
Chief?
Just a suggestion,
Yeah,
so you don't have to worry, well, you'll have it done for next one.
Yep.
Just change it now on the wage and personnel, it's just a scale. You can up that now, you can up to $100,000 right now if you wanted to, right? You put it on the agenda that you're gonna discuss this,
yeah,
That's true.
so you can up that to $100,000 right now, and then figure out the money, you can take care of it at the next meeting, but you got rid of one step that you don't have to worry about reprinting stuff right ahead of time.
Right.
I like the idea of that. I appreciate you being here, because those little tricks I don't know yet, so that's great. So, thank God I'm the chairman.
10 minutes from now, you may not want them here.
No, seriously. Let's do that. Can we up that? Can we just do it now, or do you want to wait until Thursday?
I'd like to make a
That'd
mo-
be in Selectmen, though, the
If-
selectmen.
Yeah, and if,
Your
it-
wage and personnel.
yeah,
Yeah.
the selectmen have to open the warrant again, because you've discussed the other ones that are on there, like
Right.
the town, the building
Wait a minute, well-
inspector.
Wage and
Is
personnel, we
accounted
vote to
for.
recommend to the board of selectmen
Yes,
to.
that was my, yes, that was
Yeah.
my point.
Oh, okay, so yeah, I did know that part. Yeah, so yes, okay. Okay, do that, because that's what I thought we were gonna do Thursday. Make the recommendation
You were
now,
almost there,
Thursday.
dude. You were
Yeah.
so close.
Well,
So I'd like to make a motion
yeah,
Yeah,
that we up the veterans agents' maximum number to 28,000
that'd be more than enough, yep.
okay.
to the Board of Selectmen. That,
Second.
right?
Okay,
Sounds like a
you-
plan. Yeah, that sounds appropriate. Got a motion, second? Any other discussion? All those in favor, say aye. Get a 4-0 vote? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
You appreciate all the work they do, honestly, thank you.
Yeah, that doesn't mean you're getting it, we
No.
just upped it.
We're actually gonna decrease your salary, we're gonna increase that. Dangle the carrot. I'll accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All right, all those in favor? We are so adjourned.
So we're reconvening into the Board of Selectmen meeting about at 9:35 PM. With that being said, I am looking for a motion to go into executive session to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining of litigation if an open session may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or the litigation position of the public body, and the chair so declares. to wit, clerical and police unions, and town administrator and opiate litigation. So moved.
Second.
All right, roll call vote. Mr. Weeks?
Aye.
Ms. Kennett? Aye. Matt? Aye. Ms.
Aye.
Murphy? All right, perfect. We are now in executive